Welcome. On behalf of my colleague and co-director of the New Plays Workshop, Jamie Rocha Allen, and myself, welcome to this evening's Zoom reading of And in the End by Elise Dunaway. Jamie is off camera right now, acting as the Zoom master for this evening, something he's eminently prepared to do, along with also everything else he does. So I'm grateful for that. Here are some instructions, which I'll repeat a little later on, but I'm going to say them now too, on how to best enjoy the play. Please keep your videos off. Please keep yourself muted for the entirety of the performance. For optimal viewing, turn your presentation to gallery view. That's in the top right-hand corner of your screen. You can hide non-video participants by clicking the three dots over any non-video box and clicking the option labeled Hide Non-Video Participants. Thank you. Well, the Department of Theater's New Plays Workshop has been in the business for several years now of nurturing new works of theater. This is how it works. We select completed but unproduced scripts for the workshop, mostly from students, but not always, sometimes from others too. But it's students who, across from the department, from the stage management program, the design program, the theater studies program, the music theater program, and the actors training program, they enroll in the course and then they come together in January, and for the whole of spring semester we meet and become a workshop to work on these new plays. First, we read dramaturgical material based on the subject matter of the play, each of the plays, and we discuss that. For this play, And in the End, that was particularly fun because it was a lot of Beatles music and articles about the Beatles. Then we do a series of table reads, familiarizing ourselves with the scripts. And then, kind of the most magic part of the workshop is that we explore the scripts on their feet. And this is where the actors really help the writer out. They act out scenes. They put the play in 3 dimensions, and the writer can see suddenly what had been just on the page. Now it's there in front of them in the playing space. Quite late in the process, we cast the plays, and then we've been rehearsing them for the last couple of weeks for these readings. We cast late because we want the writer to be able to hear a variety of voices and a variety of genders read all the parts, because that also tends to stimulate creativity. All along the way, the workshop stops and discusses the scripts, discusses the process, and we observe what we're hearing and seeing, and the writers rewrite as they see fit. This writer, like the other 3 writers whose plays we've done over the last few nights, has worked really hard and consistently all through the semester. So it all leads up to tonight. Tonight, you'll be hearing and seeing And in the End as its very first audience. So thank you for being at the cutting edge of theater. It does give you a responsibility if you're willing to accept it. That's to observe carefully, and in the talkback, which will be led by our dramaturg, Max Villa, along with our director, Lexie Thomsen, and of course the writer, Elise Dunaway, you'll tell Elise what her play is about. If you can't stay, that's fine too, of course, but if you can, you might be thinking about questions like these. What surprises you about this account of the last days of the Beatles? What didn't you know? What role does Linda McCARTNey take in her husband's trouble? Thinking thematically, is there an application for this story to us non-Beatles? Max will guide you. You can ask questions by just typing them in and putting them in the chat. And Max will be monitoring that and convey your questions or comments at the talkback. I want to thank this hardworking creative team and cast, especially Elise. Elise's passion and energy for this project has been virtually limitless. Some writers interest themselves in a subject. For Elise, it's total immersion. She set herself a formidable task: make the story dramatically compelling and get it right. No cheating. Get the dates and times right, get the people right, but make sure the story grabs the audience. Her strategy was to select the most interesting bits from what really happened, sometimes even what the principal characters really said, and make the story from that. Elise kept at it until she got just the right mix for this enthralling play. Elise is an artist with a strong vision to which she's tenaciously committed. At the same time, she's open to, no, actually she seeks out responses from others to her work, deliberating on them and then translating them into what she knows will work in her play. That combination is a kind of a fantastic 1-2 punch for a playwright, because playwrights need to be able to work alone and collaboratively. Elise has learned to do that brilliantly. Her play tonight, And in the End, is about the events which led to the demise of a band called the Beatles. I decided to say a band called the Beatles because I can't assume everybody knows the Beatles. What effect it had on band member Paul McCartney, and then what happened next. Weaving through the events, and on a time stream slightly later, are interjections in which McCartney and his, it has to be said, long-suffering wife, Linda Eastman McCartney, sift through it all, trying to make it make sense. When some people with outsized success have that taken away, life can seem over. But there's the rest of a life to be lived. Elise raises a fundamental question in the play. How do you do that? And in the end, we'll have a 10-minute intermission, a little more than halfway through, and a brief talkback will follow the reading immediately. So once again, please keep your videos off, keep yourself muted for the entirety of the performance. For optimal viewing, turn your presentation to gallery view in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Hide non-video participants by clicking the 3 dots over any non-video box and clicking the option Hide Non-Video Participants. Now enjoy Elise Dunaway's And in the End.
And in the End by Elise Dunaway. Characters in order of appearance. Paul McCartney, English, late 20s, passionate, perfectionist, perseverant. Linda McCartney, American, late 20s, nurturing, patient, kind. George Harrison, English, late 20s, independent, a bit frustrated, quick-witted. Ringo Starr, English, late 20s, steady, even-tempered, considerate. John Lennon, English, late 20s, detached, stubborn, opinionated. Yoko Ono, Japanese, mid-30s, avant-garde artist. George Martin, English, early 40s, producer of the Beatles. Mal Evans, English, mid-30s, roadie for the Beatles. Derek Taylor, English, late 30s, press officer for the Beatles. Notes: this play is not in chronological order. We switch between late November 1969 on Paul's farm and various points in 1969 and 1970. This play is based on true events, but it takes some artistic liberties with some of the specifics of how things went down. Act 1, Scene 1. Late November 1969. Paul's farm in Scotland. The stage should be completely dark so that we can't see what's on it. A bed is center stage. John and Linda are standing on the right side of the bed, John at the foot and Linda at the head. Ringo is standing across from John while George is standing across from Linda. Paul is sprawled across the bed, face down in a pillow. He begins to stir but doesn't move much. He is waking up.
Going to suffocate.
Paul doesn't move.
You're not breathing.
Once again, Paul doesn't move. More time passes than before.
Just roll over, Paul. It's not that hard. You're not paralyzed.
Paul stirs, but doesn't quite muster up the energy to roll over.
What about me and the kids? You're really going to suffocate and leave us without a husband and father?
After a moment, Paul rolls over with tremendous effort. The second he is on his back, lights go up. Paul is alone in a small, cozy bedroom. Early afternoon light is shining in from the window behind the bed. One of the nightstands is full of alcohol bottles and empty glasses. Paul takes a deep, long breath.
It's really gotten this bad, huh?
Few moments pass before Linda enters. She should be in a different costume. She looks at Paul for a few moments before going to stand next to him.
Do you know what time it is?
No.
Makes sense. You can't see the clock when it's blocked by all this stuff. It's time to get up.
I am up.
I said get up, not wake up.
Paul doesn't move. Linda sighs and starts clearing the glasses and bottles from the nightstand. After a moment, Paul slowly sits up and half-heartedly helps her.
You've been drinking much more than usual lately. I don't like it.
Sorry.
Sorry?
Paul nods.
Could you go start a bath for the girls? Heather was playing in some mud this morning and got it all over Mary.
Morning?
Yeah, it's afternoon now.
Huh.
Could you start a bath for them?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Linda takes the bottles and glasses with her as she leaves. Paul watches her go, stares at the doorway for a few moments, then lies back down on the bed. He is still for a while. Linda re-enters. When she sees Paul still in the bed, she stops in the doorway and thinks for a moment.
You know, when we first got together, you did something that struck me as very odd.
What was it?
You'd ask me if you could sit down in your own house. Linda, is it all right if I sit down for a moment? I always said yes, of course, but it was odd.
Paul turns his head to look at her but doesn't say anything.
It was like you wanted my permission to relax.
She walks over to the bed and sits down.
You don't do that anymore.
I have nothing to keep me busy anymore.
I can think of plenty of things to do around here that will keep you busy.
You know what I meant.
Yeah, and I was serious about what I said. You can fix the gap in the fence or help me sort through the junk. Maybe you could write a song.
I'm not in the mood for songwriting.
I don't think you've written one since we got here.
I can't right now.
All right, suit yourself. There are also horses you can ride, sheep to shear, 2 daughters to spend time with.
I have been spending time with them. I'm not neglectful.
I know that. You're a good dad, Paul. You just need to get out of this rut.
This rut.
Linda nods. Paul takes a deep breath.
I don't know what to do. I didn't think I'd be a washed-up musician at 27.
I don't think you're washed up.
I don't have anything going for me anymore. The Beatles fell apart. I didn't plan for a career without them.
That doesn't mean your career is over. It just means you're going in a different direction now, and different doesn't mean bad.
Linda lies down and faces Paul.
You're a person who plans a lot. You like being in control.
I'm not sure where you're going with this.
I think part of why this is difficult is because you're in unknown territory. You're not used to that.
Yeah, maybe.
And you feel like you're navigating this unknown territory alone.
Well, I don't have the others anymore.
You have me. You're not totally on your own, Paul. You don't have to deal with this by yourself.
It only affects me.
How?
I'm the one who was in the band. Now I don't have a band.
Okay, that doesn't only affect you though, Paul. I'm married to you. I have to deal with the fact that my husband thinks his career is over. I have to help figure out how we're going to support 2 kids, if that's actually true.
You don't have to worry about that.
Why not?
That stuff is up to me.
We are in this together, Paul. It's not just up to you anymore. You need to do something to start getting out of this rut, Paul.
Like what?
You could start by talking about it.
I don't need to talk about it.
Why not?
Because it won't change anything. It won't get things to be the way they used to be.
What will change things then?
I don't know.
Do you think that lying in bed most of the day is going to get things back to how they were?
Come on, Linda.
What? I'm being serious.
So am I.
I'm just trying to understand what you're going through, Paul.
You want to understand?
Yeah, of course I do.
Maybe then you just let me lie here.
Paul,
What?
come on.
All right. What do you want to know?
How did this all start?
Paul thinks for a moment, then turns on his side so he is facing Linda.
I think it started falling apart when we were finding a new manager.
End of scene. Scene 2. Early February 1969, Apple Corps Limited Office, London, England. Paul is sitting in a chair by the window. George leans on the wall by the door. Ringo stands in a corner near the desk, and John sits with Yoko on the couch. Paperwork is strewn across the desk. It is clear that they've been at this meeting for a long time. After too much silence, Yoko lightly elbows John.
I think Klein's our guy. He'll be able to turn this company around and make it more profitable.
I disagree. I don't understand why you're all so adamant about hiring him.
Gone through this already, Paul.
But none of you have given a good reason.
Yes, we have. Maybe you should listen more.
Or maybe you should listen to me. Klein is brash and he only looks after himself. Why do you think the Rolling Stones are hiring other people to go through their finances now?
That's their decision. I don't know the inner workings of their band. But I do know that because of Klein, the Stones have made more money than we ever have.
I think that a large sum of that money goes directly to Klein. So how much are the Stones actually getting?
I don't know. They didn't hire me to go through their finances.
I don't think they make as much money as you're convinced they do. Klein is robbing them.
What's your proof for that?
I don't think the Stones would hire other people to look at their finances if they trusted Klein.
That's not proof. You can't just go around making accusations like that, Paul. I don't believe that Klein is robbing them. But on the off chance you're right, he wouldn't rob us.
How do you know that?
Because I don't think he's robbing the Rolling Stones. If he's not robbing them, he won't rob us. And whatever he does with their money has no effect on us anyway. I don't see why you care so much.
I just want what's best for us.
So do we. That's why we want Klein to be our new manager. I mean, no disrespect to Brian, but he had no idea what he was doing when we first started making it in this business.
John.
I said no disrespect. I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead by any means, but we all know that Brian signed a lot of deals that ended up costing us quite a bit of money.
Klein will be able to fix that.
He has a lot of experience managing musicians. He probably knows more about this industry than we do.
I'm telling you that John and Lee are our best options.
Did Linda tell you to say that?
Don't bring Linda into this.
I think John is just concerned that they'll treat you better because they're Linda's family.
Everyone freezes except for Paul. Spotlights on him and Linda.
They wouldn't have done that.
I know. I tried telling the others that. I guess it makes sense that they wouldn't believe me.
How so?
If any one of them had tried to get their in-laws involved, I probably would have been suspicious. It probably looked like I was trying to get a leg up on them rather than hire people who could actually help us.
I guess that makes sense. So what did you say?
Spotlights down. Scene resumes.
That's ridiculous. When has any one of us been treated better than another?
Northern Songs gave you and John way more royalties than they gave me or Ringo.
We write more songs than you two do. And that's besides the point. You and Ringo started your own publishing companies. The point is that we need to decide who our new manager is. It's clear we can't manage this business on our own.
Klein won't be able to do either.
But two lawyers based in New York can.
Yeah, they can, actually. I already explained that. Maybe you should listen more.
Klein is a New York guy too.
Whose side are you on?
You know I don't have a problem with Klein. I don't have a problem with the Eastmans either. I was just pointing out the facts.
I also think we should consider that John already met with Klein and basically offered him the job.
You did what?
I didn't think it would turn into this. We usually agree on everything.
We didn't even discuss it beforehand. You can't just assume we'll agree with you on everything.
Lately, we haven't been agreeing on anything.
Picking a manager is a group decision, John. I didn't go behind your back and tell the Eastmans they had the job if they wanted it. I reached out to them to see if they'd even be interested.
Good for you. How about we all give you a pat on the back?
Yoko slowly turns to John.
John, tell Paul more about the meeting. Maybe he'll understand.
Understand what?
I don't know if you'll fully get it because you weren't there. If you had been, you wouldn't have so many reservations about Klein.
What happened?
He gets us, Paul.
What is that supposed to mean?
He gets us. He understands us. It's like he's known us our whole lives. It's incredible.
When you say us, are you referring to the Beatles or to yourself and Yoko?
Well, Yoko and I were the only ones there. But both. He gets the band as well as me and Yoko. He's one of the first people to genuinely see her talent. I almost couldn't believe it, and it was amazing how much he told me about myself.
Did you two know about this?
Sort of.
John told me a bit about it, yeah.
And you both feel the same way about Klein?
Well, I'm certainly not as dazzled as John is, but I think Klein will be able to do a lot for us.
I think that he doesn't let anything get in his way. I think he'll straighten things out for us.
John, when did you meet with Klein to offer him the job? You offered it to him the very first time you met him?
Why do you think I brought him in to meet everyone a few days ago?
I was under the impression that that was a prospective meeting, something similar to a job interview.
Maybe you wouldn't have thought that if you hadn't left early.
I left early because he didn't impress me. I don't think he's the right fit.
Give him a chance, Paul. I'm telling you, he gets us.
At the very least, he'll be able to do for us what he did for the Rolling Stones.
Why is that our criteria for what makes a good manager? There's more to it than just making money.
Like what? We're not touring anymore. We don't do group interviews anymore. We're able to do most of what Brian did for us now on our own.
Klein will handle the business stuff that none of us know how to do. That in and of itself will make us more money. A properly managed business is a good one.
Everyone freezes, except for Paul. Spotlight's on him and Linda.
When did they start caring so much about the business?
I don't know. I think they've always cared about parts of it.
A properly managed business is a good one. That doesn't even sound like Ringo.
I'm sure it's something Klein said at the meeting.
Did any of you care about how Apple was managed before John brought Klein in?
I don't think so. John said in an interview that he was concerned it was losing money, but I don't know if he considered that a management issue. I think Klein saw his opportunity with Apple and took it.
Spotlight's down. Scene resumes.
Maybe you should consider a compromise.
Sort of compromise.
I don't know, but we've been sitting here for quite a long time and no progress has been made. If no one is willing to give in, maybe we should try and meet in the middle.
What if Klein managed the business and the Eastmans became our lawyers?
Do we need lawyers?
Don't all businesses have lawyers?
How would hiring both of them solve anything?
Well, Klein can handle the day-to-day stuff and work out deals for us. The Eastmans could provide legal advice and handle those kind of issues.
Such as?
I don't know. I'm not an expert. But I think we do have some legal things the Eastmans could work on that are a bit outside of Klein's expertise.
I think you're right, Ringo.
I think that will result in too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
You and Yoko were just talking about a compromise. How about we try this?
I don't like the idea of Klein having any sort of involvement.
You're the only one who thinks that.
You would too if you actually listened to me.
You can't just assume we'll agree with you on everything, right, Paul?
I'm not single-handedly making a decision that will affect the whole group, am I? I just think there are other ways we can work this out.
It's what we've been trying to do this whole time. We're trying to compromise now, remember? Ringo and I are on the same page. Care to join us?
Scene. Scene 3. Late November 1969. Paul's farm in Scotland. Afternoon. He and Linda are in their bedrooms. Linda is now sitting on the bed while Paul is still lying on it.
So, you think that needing a new manager was the beginning of the end?
Not quite. I think Alan Klein was the beginning of the end.
I can see that.
Maybe we'd still be together if I'd just gone along with the others.
What?
If I hadn't put up a fight about Klein, maybe the band would still be together.
I guess that's possible. But you'd be miserable. Is that worth it?
Well, I'm sort of miserable now, so what's the difference?
The difference is that right now you're grieving.
What?
You're grieving. The Beatles broke up and you don't know what to do from here. If you had gone along with Klein, you'd be stuck in a situation with no end in sight. That's miserable.
I don't think I'm grieving.
Paul,
What?
why don't you think that?
Because no one died.
Death isn't the only reason people grieve, Paul. What do you think you're doing then?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure things out.
And what have you figured out so far?
Not much. Just that I don't like being in this situation.
So, you've been thinking about how you got here and what you're going to do to get out.
More about how I got here.
Right. Maybe you should stop dwelling on the past.
Why?
You can't change it. Maybe you should start thinking about what you can change.
Like what?
Your daily routine?
I get it, Linda.
Do you?
Yeah. You want me to get up? I know.
But you haven't.
I will at some point. I've never spent an entire day here.
I don't like this becoming a pattern, Paul.
Okay.
I'm just trying to help.
I know, but you can't force me to do anything. Just give me some time.
You know, I'm sort of surprised that the other three cared so much about deciding on a manager.
What do you mean?
They cared more about that than they did about working. You were the only one getting projects started. They just followed along.
You're right that they didn't start projects, but they aren't lazy. If they didn't want to work, they wouldn't have.
No, I don't think they're lazy. They're just not proactive. You are.
Sure. Brian was proactive for us. He always made sure we had something to do. I don't think the other three are used to doing that on their own. At least with the Beatles.
Yeah, they didn't seem to have any trouble starting side projects, just Beatles ones. You're the only one who went to George Martin to start anything.
I did.
You're the one who had a clear sense of what the band should accomplish.
I tried to, yeah.
You did. Otherwise, you wouldn't have cared so much.
We were still making good music. The business side of things wasn't that great, but the music always was.
And that's why you pushed to keep making music?
Yeah.
If you hadn't done that, the band would have ended a lot sooner than it did.
End of scene. Scene 4. Mid-February 1969. Abbey Road Studios, London, England. Late afternoon. Paul walks into Studio 2 just as George Martin is leaving it.
Ah, George! Just the man I was looking for.
Hello, Paul. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I have a proposition for you, actually.
What is it?
How would you feel about producing another album for us?
George Martin thinks for a few moments. He leans against the doorframe and puts his hands in his pockets. Paul follows suit, not in any hurry.
You guys really want to make another album after how the last one went?
I do. I haven't actually asked the others yet, but I know they're not doing anything else right now.
Not doing anything else? John is making avant-garde music with Yoko, and George just got his tonsils out.
That music isn't taking much of their time. We've all done side projects. And George has been out of the hospital for a few days now. I believe he has recovered enough to start recording again.
What about Ringo?
I don't think he's busy right now.
How do you even know if they want to do another album?
We're the Beatles. Why wouldn't we?
I don't know about this, Paul. The Get Back sessions were miserable. Even you will admit that.
At first, yes. They got better once we moved to Apple Studio, though. And having Billy around eased tensions, too.
Yes, that's true. Will Billy be back for another album?
We'd have to ask him. I'm sure we could get him for at least a few sessions, though.
And if you can't?
We're all adults here. We'll find a way to work together.
I'd like to make it clear that my hesitation to work on another album isn't because I don't want to work with the four of you again. I do. But it doesn't seem like you all want to work with each other.
I want to work with them, and I haven't heard any of them say they're done with the band ever since we convinced George to rejoin.
I haven't either. But you don't get along like you used to.
I see your point, but I honestly think things are getting better. And we still sound great playing together. The stuff we did on the roof proves that.
Yes, that was a good performance. It's good you were able to pull that one off.
That's why I want to do another album. We still got it. There's so much we can still do together. I don't see why we should give that up.
I don't think you should give up, but it's only been a few weeks since you were last in the studio. You really think that's been enough of a break?
The way I see it is we're never going to properly work things out if we just stop recording. Avoiding each other won't fix anything. Plus, we have so many songs we can work on.
Yes, you do.
They're good songs, George. There's plenty of material for another album.
I don't know if the album will ever get made if things go the way Get Back did.
Would you do it if I promised you this next album wouldn't be like that? No fighting, just working together, playing music like the good old days.
If you can get the other three involved and make sure this won't be a repeat of what happened a few weeks ago, I'll do it.
I knew I could count on you, George.
I'm serious, Paul. If you're playing music like the good old days, I want to produce like them. We need to reinstate a level of discipline in the sections and actually work.
I agree. I think that's doable.
All right. I'll see you in the studio then.
Sounds great. Thanks, George.
End of scene. Scene 5. Late November 1969. Paul and Linda's bedroom in Scotland. Afternoon. They're both now sitting up on the bed.
I knew the band still had potential. We had accomplished a lot, but there were still plenty of things for us to do.
And you pushed to do them.
Yeah?
Which is what I was saying earlier. You were the proactive one.
Maybe too proactive.
I don't think so.
You don't?
No. Someone had to take charge.
I guess so, yeah. It just seems like we were closer before I took charge.
How so?
We didn't argue as much. We were all on the same page for the most things, and when we weren't, it wasn't really a huge deal.
The fact that that changed isn't totally your fault. Sometimes people start to drift apart for no particular reason. It just happens.
Sure, but it wasn't like we drifted and that was it. There were still so many great moments. Plenty of good times.
I think that's typical.
What do you mean?
I think it's typical that you can still have good times while you're drifting apart. It's not instantaneous.
Maybe. You know, things did change a bit after we stopped touring, but that was because we suddenly weren't seeing each other constantly. When you tour as much as we did, those people are the only ones you see. We had a lot of time on our hands once we stopped and we started exploring different things. But I wouldn't say we started drifting apart that early.
You all seemed very close at the Sgt. Pepper release party.
We were close. We were for a long time.
Have I ever told you what I was thinking during your Shea Stadium concert?
You were annoyed that all the screaming girls were drowning out the music.
Well, yeah, but have I told you the other thing I was thinking during the concert?
I don't think so.
I was thinking that it looked like you four were having a lot of fun.
We were. No one had ever done anything like that before. It was incredible.
I bring that up now because it seems like you were having fun in most of the studio sessions I went to. Not the same energy level, of course, but you were still having a good time.
Sure. I've told you that there were still good times in the studio despite everything that was going on.
And I'm saying there were fun times too. Sometimes it's hard to remember those when you're going through a difficult time. You miss the others.
Of course I do.
So what are you going to do about it?
What?
You miss being close to the others. Are you going to move on, or are you going to work through this with them and become close again?
I haven't even thought that far ahead.
Okay, I think you should.
Because you want me to stop dwelling on the past.
Yeah, it's not good.
Maybe not. I'm not sure if I can work through this with the others, though. Too much has happened lately.
Then work through it on your own. You're going to be stuck unless you do something.
Okay, you've made it very clear that you want me to do something.
And you've made it very clear that you don't want to.
It's easier that way.
Not really.
It feels easy.
Okay, maybe it does, but you don't usually settle for the easy option.
Paul sighs. Linda turns toward him.
You can start by getting up.
What?
You can get up. If you want to do something easy, that's a good option.
I don't see how this will improve the situation.
You'll be up and at it. It's hard to improve a situation when you're lying in bed.
Linda stands up.
I'm serious, Paul. At the very least, getting out of bed will take your mind off of things. It will be easier to move on that way.
I get up every day and I've still ended up back in bed feeling miserable.
I didn't say getting up would fix all of your problems. It's just a start.
A start.
Yeah. Have you felt miserable when you've spent time with me and the girls?
No, of course not.
Good. You should do more of that then.
But then after that, I'm back to being miserable.
I know. That's why I'm trying to help you. There are plenty of things you can do once you're up. I don't understand why you insist on staying in bed today.
I'm having a hard time.
I know. That hasn't stopped you before, though.
Linda moves to his side of the bed, but remains standing.
I've been through hard times before. I lost my mom unexpectedly. I've been divorced. I've always felt better when I got up and did something. It didn't make things easier, but it helped me get through it.
I lost my mom unexpectedly too.
I know, Paul.
I didn't really let it affect me. I was sad, of course, but I was 14. I had to be tough. I started playing the guitar shortly after, and I'm sure that got me through it. Then I met John a few months later and joined his group.
You made yourself busy.
Yeah,
And you got through it.
I did.
So what's stopping you now?
I don't know.
How about you get up and meet me outside? There's something I want to show you.
Okay, sure.
Linda leaves. Paul watches her go. End of scene. Scene 6, March 26th, 1969. Half of the stage should be Paul and Linda at her father's home in New York City. The other half should be John and Yoko at their bed-in for peace in Amsterdam. Paul and Linda are watching them being interviewed on the television.
Well, we figured we had to do something about this. People need to know where we stand when it comes to peace or violence.
It is much better to choose peace.
Yes, it is. So we're here for peace. We want everyone to choose peace.
Paul mutes the television.
Odd, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit. I guess it's one way to promote peace.
Is that what they're doing, though?
You heard them just barely. Peace is all they were going on about.
Yeah, I know. But are they doing it for peace, or are they doing it for the attention? There are plenty of ways to promote peace that don't involve getting married, then lying in bed for the press.
Sure. This makes sense, though, for them at least. Yoko is an avant-garde artist.
John isn't.
What's bothering you?
What?
Something about John and Yoko is bothering you.
I just think it's suspicious.
What?
The whole thing. Getting married 8 days after us, then having this odd honeymoon.
How is that suspicious?
They hadn't even been discussing marriage.
They must have at some point, otherwise they wouldn't have gotten married.
I meant that before you and I got married, they hadn't been talking about it.
I don't think you can say that definitively. I'm sure they talk to each other while you're not around.
Ah, I'm sure they do.
I'm just saying that you don't know everything about John and Yoko.
I just feel like I would have heard if they had been planning on getting married, though. Word gets around, you know.
Did John know that we were planning a wedding?
I don't know. I never spoke directly to him about it. But our wedding wasn't a secret either.
Paul, we scheduled an appointment the night before so no one would find out. Seems like a secret to me.
That's true, but the date was set for a while. People at the office knew about it. And if anything else, it wasn't a secret that I wanted to marry you.
Well, that's good to hear.
Isn't it strange to learn that a friend got married through the news rather than directly from the friend?
It would be if you weren't famous.
Yeah, maybe so.
Paul unmutes the television.
Like getting married, so we went and got married.
Not quite that easily.
No. There were lots of things trying to get in our way, but we didn't let them.
People gave silly reasons as to why we couldn't get married in certain places.
But we made it work. You just have to, you know? When you want to marry someone, you make it all work.
Paul mutes the television again.
John wasn't always like this, you know.
What do you mean?
He wasn't into stuff like this.
Lying in bed to promote peace?
Well, yeah, but I meant that he wasn't into going out of his way to get the press's attention.
He didn't have to. He's a Beatle.
That's exactly it. As a Beatle, he gets enough attention as it is. He and Yoko didn't have to go through all of this just to promote peace.
I think this is different than the attention he usually gets. He's promoting a cause, not just going about his day.
Sure, but it just seems odd to me that this is what they decide to do to promote a cause.
It is odd, but I also think it's fitting for them. They don't seem to like doing things the conventional way.
And yet they got married, which is a conventional thing to do.
But not everyone gets married in Gibraltar and spends their honeymoon promoting peace in Amsterdam.
Good point.
I don't know why John decided to get married so soon after we did. I don't know why he's seeking attention right now, but I do know that he's going to do whatever it is he wants to do. I don't see the point in trying to figure out his reasoning. You have other things you can focus on.
Like you and Heather.
Yeah, and your music. Spend more time working on that rather than thinking about what John is up to.
All right. I'll try.
Paul turns the television off. Blackout. End of scene. Scene 7, late November 1969. Paul's farm in Scotland. Afternoon. Linda is standing outside. She glances over the area, looking content. After a moment, Paul steps out. He blinks and shields his eye. It's very bright outside.
What is it you wanted me to see?
This.
She motions toward everything out there. Paul looks around, not sure what the point is.
Nothing looks different.
I know.
So why am I looking at it?
Because we live here, and I want you to appreciate it.
Paul looks around again. He seems mightily disappointed.
What's the problem?
You deserve better than living in such a mess.
Paul, how many times have I told you that I love it here?
A few.
It has definitely been more than a few times. It's true. I love this place. I don't care what state it's in.
You talked about fixing it up.
Sure, we could make this place really nice, or we could leave it as it is. I'll be happy either way. But I want you to be happy here too.
I am happy here.
Paul.
I'm happy that we're here.
Linda nods. She takes Paul's hand.
I'm glad we're starting our life together here. It's just us and the kids. We don't have any other responsibilities right now.
I'm not used to being free of responsibilities.
You shouldn't necessarily get used to it. We won't be here forever. But I think you'll agree with me that it's good we're getting a break from everything.
Good, yes, but not easy.
That's okay. I didn't think it would be easy.
I didn't think things would end up like this.
I bet no one did. You're not going through this alone, though, remember? You have us.
Paul looks around the farm again.
I know it may not seem like it, but I do like it here. I love being with you and the kids.
Well, that's good to hear. I think they feel the same.
Thanks, Linda.
Linda smiles and kisses his cheek. End of scene. Scene 8, April 14th, 1969, early afternoon. Paul's living room at 7 Cavendish Avenue, London, England. No one is on stage for a few moments. Suddenly, John enters from the front door. He glances around for a moment before making his presence known.
Hello? Anybody here? Paul? Are you home? Paul!
No response. John huffs. He waits impatiently for a few more moments before taking a deep breath.
Paul!
After a few more moments, Paul stumbles into the room. His hair is slightly disheveled and he rubs his eyes. He looks at John.
Oh, good. You're home.
What on earth are you doing here?
I wrote a song,
And?
and I want to work on it with you. Why else would I show up?
I don't know. You don't really do that anymore.
Well, I'm here now. What took you so long? I've been trying to get your attention.
I was taking a nap.
All right, fair enough.
Yoko here with you?
No.
Paul waits for more of an explanation, but doesn't get one. John walks into the room and sits on the couch. Paul looks at his watch.
Did Linda let you in? I didn't think she'd be back yet.
No. If she had, she could have just gone and woken you up. Would have saved me from all that trouble, too.
How did you get in then?
The door was unlocked.
The gate wasn't.
Yeah, I know.
You jumped over the gate again.
John nods.
The gate is there for a reason, you know.
There weren't any fans around this time.
Paul decides to drop the issue. He sits down in a chair across from John.
So, what's your song?
I've called it The Ballad of John and Yoko.
What is it about?
Ha. It's about our wedding and the hassle everyone put us through. And the honeymoon.
Yeah, I heard about that. The bed thing in Amsterdam?
The bed in for peace. It had a purpose.
I know. We're just lying in bed for the attention.
Exactly. We were promoting something important to us in the easiest way we could. It's important to spread the idea of peace. Much better than promoting war or violence.
I agree. Do you have a demo of the song I can hear?
No. But hear the lyrics?
John takes a folded piece of paper out of his back pocket and hands it to Paul.
What is it?
What?
Why do you have that look on your face?
It's nothing, really. Just the chorus was a bit surprising.
How so?
You mention Christ and then say they're going to crucify you.
Oh, don't tell me you've become all religious.
John, did you forget what happened a few years ago?
No.
And?
And I still wrote this anyway. I don't care what people think of it.
Don't?
No. Otherwise, I would have written something else. If people don't like the song just because of that, they're missing the point.
Sure, but what you said was a big deal. I don't want this to blow up like that.
It's not going to blow up. No one cared about my comment here. Only people in America did. We aren't touring anymore, so if Americans get upset again, it won't affect us here.
Maybe, but I think this is different.
Come on, Paul. It's only me.
Paul looks at him for a few moments before looking down at the lyrics again.
I can't record this without you, Paul. Things will be fine.
Okay, I think you're right.
Didn't take much to change your mind.
Yeah, I know. You want to record this today?
Yeah, that's why I came by to get you.
Okay.
Great, let's go.
Let me leave a note for Linda and grab my shoes. Then we'll be off.
The set transforms from Paul's living room to Studio 3 at Abbey Road Studios. Paul is sitting at a drum kit while John is standing with a guitar. A take of the song has just ended. They're both in good spirits.
Sorry, added an extra hit again.
That's all right. Just don't do it again now.
Yes, sir.
It goes ba-ba-ba-ba, or ba-ba-ba, not ba-ba-ba-ba.
Got it. Don't break another string now.
Wasn't planning on it.
John roughly strums his guitar. Paul does a short drum fill.
All right, shall we try it again?
Ready whenever you are.
John nods and readjusts his guitar. He turns to the microphone.
Go a bit faster, Ringo.
Okay, George.
Okay.
John begins to strum his guitar as the lights fade. End of scene. Scene 9, late November 1969. Paul's farm in Scotland. Morning. Paul is sitting outside by the gap in the fence. He is wearing pajamas and an old bathrobe. Various tools are strewn around him. He holds up a piece of wood to the gap, but not long enough to fill it. He sighs and puts it down. He grabs another piece of wood that's too long. He thinks for a moment and then grabs a hammer. He looks around for a nail, but there isn't one. He stands up and starts searching.
Here we go. This should do the trick for now.
Paul picks up a nail, then heads back to the fence. He tries to hammer the nail in, but has a hard time doing that and holding the wood in place. He resorts in holding the wood against the fence with his foot as he hammers in the nail. Somehow, the wood breaks. Paul throws the hammer down in frustration. Just then, Linda steps outside holding baby Mary. She is wearing a coat over her pajamas.
Paul, what's going on? What are you doing out here in the cold?
I was trying to be useful around here for once.
What do you mean?
I was trying to fix this fence and the wood broke.
You don't have to fix that if you don't want to.
I want to be useful again.
Linda nods and goes to sit by Paul. Paul turns toward the fence.
What do you mean by that?
What?
You want to be useful again. What do you mean?
Ever since we got here, I haven't really done anything. I've been wasting a lot of my time. We're going back to London next week, and I don't have anything to show for my time here.
You're not used to taking breaks.
What?
You're used to moving directly from one project to another.
What I've been doing the last 10 or so years.
I know. Being a Beatle demanded a lot of you and your time.
Paul nods.
You have nothing to prove, Paul.
Paul runs a hand through his hair. Linda looks down at Mary, then passes her to Paul. He holds her instinctively.
Feel useful now?
What do you mean?
You're holding Mary, giving my arms a break. You're being useful.
Paul looks at Linda, not totally sure if she's making fun of him or being genuine.
You're a good dad, Paul. I think you've been useful every day by spending time with Heather and Mary. I don't view that as time wasted.
I don't either. You do a good job of putting things in perspective, Linda.
I try.
You.
I think it's good for you to get out of your own head every now and then. That probably helps put things into perspective, too. What else have you been thinking about?
How everyone turned on me. It was the other three against me, and I keep trying to figure out if I could have done anything to prevent that from happening.
You can't go back and change things.
I know. I can't help but think about it, though.
Is there anything in particular that stands out to you?
I know exactly when we reach the point of no return.
End of scene. Scene 10, May 9th, 1969. Olympic Sound Studios, London, England. Paul sits alone in the control room. He glances at his watch and then toward the door. After a few moments, he turns to the mixing console. Just before he starts using it, John, George, and Ringo enters. John is holding a piece of paper and a pen.
I didn't think all of us would be here for this.
It's not unusual for all of us to attend mixing sessions.
I don't mind that we're all here. I assumed it would just be me and John, though. We're the ones who told Glenn to do something with all the songs we recorded for the Get Back project.
Stuff we all worked on, though, no matter who ended up deciding it could be turned into an album.
Yeah, I know. I remember all of us being there. Anyway, Glenn should be here any moment to start working.
Glenn isn't here yet. We should talk business for a moment.
Paul sighs and swivels around in his chair to face the others. John, George, and Ringo find a place to sit. It is quiet for a few moments as John reviews the paper in his hands.
We need you to sign this contract officially appointing Klein as our manager.
I won't consider signing anything until I've had a chance to read it.
It's just a contract, Paul.
That's exactly why I want to read it first.
You've seen plenty of contracts before. This one isn't any different.
I want to know what I'm getting myself into, John. That's not an unreasonable request.
So Klein can actually do some real work for us? He's been acting on our behalf since February, but nothing in official capacity.
Let me see it.
John looks at George and Ringo. George rolls his eyes while Ringo nods. John reluctantly hands Paul the contract. Paul takes his time reading it.
Klein doesn't need 20% of our income. That's ridiculous. He can have 15%.
15%? Come on, Paul.
Do you really want him taking a fifth of our income? Aren't you the one who's always so concerned about money?
You're not even going to notice that it's gone because Klein will be able to get us more money than we've ever made before.
And that just means more money for him. He'll be fine with 15%.
Everyone freezes except for Paul. Spotlights on him and Linda.
Paul, if you didn't want Klein to be your manager, why were you considering letting him have 15%?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I guess I knew by that point that Klein was going to be involved whether I wanted him to be or not. I couldn't completely get him out, but I could try to limit how much he got from us.
Would you have signed the contract if it had said 15% originally?
I don't know.
Spotlights down.
We've had 3 months to figure this out. Why bring it up now? It's a little late to start renegotiating.
I'm not renegotiating anything. I haven't even signed it. What's the rush to sign it anyway? It's Friday. I think we should take the weekend to think about this. Deal with it on Monday.
That's not going to work. He has to present this contract to the ABCO board in New York City tomorrow.
He has a board meeting on a Saturday.
That's what he said, yes.
But Klein doesn't work on Saturdays.
Here's this one.
The board meeting, Paul, it's important.
He's the president of ABCO. He can reschedule it. Or he can save this for the next board meeting.
Paul, you can't stall this anymore. Klein is presenting the contract to his board tomorrow. Just sign it.
I'm not stalling anything. I'm trying to make sure that we're getting the best deal possible.
That's what the last 3 months have been for. This is the best deal.
It's time for him to present this to his board.
You all keep saying that. I heard you the first time, and I understand. Klein has to present this contract at the ABCO board meeting in New York City tomorrow. Did any of you ask him why?
No, but only because it's self-explanatory. This is a new deal for his company and the board needs to know about it.
But why does it have to be at this specific meeting? Why are we doing this on Klein's timeline instead of our own? He's trying to work for us.
Everyone freezes except for Paul. Spotlights on him and Linda.
Was it that urgent to sign with a manager right then?
Sort of. The dispute over Northern songs was starting to heat up, so having a good manager to negotiate on our half would have been helpful. That didn't concern George or Ringo, though.
But because they liked Klein, they wanted him to come on board officially.
I guess so, yeah. They probably just wanted to get the money Klein was promising them as soon as possible.
Spotlights down. Scene resumes.
Can we even be sure that Klein actually has a board meeting tomorrow? He could be lying.
Why would he lie about that?
To pressure us into signing this contract.
That's ridiculous.
He's a bully, John. He'll do whatever it takes to get us to sign this.
I really don't understand what your problem is with Klein. He's been in the industry for a long time. He knows what he's doing. And he's promising to make us more money. Why are you holding out?
As I've explained before, I don't trust him. He's brash and domineering. He's only happy if he'll get his way. He only looks out for himself. I don't want someone like that anywhere near our stuff.
You don't really know him, though.
Neither do you. You only met him a few months ago.
You weren't there when I first met him. You just don't get it.
I've heard all about the meeting, and I understand perfectly. He buttered you up, and you just couldn't resist.
Stop acting like this, Paul. Sign the contract.
I'm not going to do that. We have the weekend ahead of us to work something better out.
You don't need to drag it out this much. Just because it's not exactly how you want it doesn't mean it's a bad contract. 20% isn't going to be as much as you think it will be.
Yes, it will. The more money we make, the more money he gets.
He doesn't want to sign with us just for the money.
John, that's the only reason why he wants to sign with us. We're the Beatles. We're one of the most famous bands around. Why wouldn't he want to be our manager?
Come on, Paul.
I'm serious. We're a big act. The Beatles. He'll take 15%.
I'm going to ask you to sign this one more time. Klein will get 20% because he deserves 20%. He's going to take this contract and present it to the ABCO board tomorrow. Sign it, Paul.
I refuse to sign it right now.
Dawn glares at Paul and yanks the contract out of his hands. He stands up and George and Ringo follow suit.
The three of us have signed it, which is the majority of the band. Whether you like it or not, Klein is our manager now.
We didn't want it to turn out like this.
What was the point of trying to convince me to sign it if it doesn't even matter?
We were hoping you'd come around eventually. Clearly that hasn't happened.
Better presenting a contract with the whole group signed. Now Klein will have to come up with some reason to explain why your signature isn't here.
He can tell the truth. I don't like him, I don't trust him, and I don't want him to have any association with the Beatles.
It's too late for that. He's our manager. Get over yourself, Paul.
Give them exit. Paul appears to be mildly stunned. He turns back to the table and puts his head in his hands. Blackout. End of Act 1.
So we're going to be taking a 10-minute break. So we will be back at 7:46. Okay, we are back.
Act 2, Scene 1. Late November 1969, Paul's farm in Scotland. Morning. Paul is asleep in his bed, either on his side or his back. An alarm clock goes off. Paul gradually turns it off. He slowly sits up and then gets out of his bed. He walks outside where he finds Linda. She is taking photos. She turns and snaps one of him.
Oh, hello.
Hey, come stand over here. The light is better.
Paul nods and goes over to Linda. She takes some photos of him. She motions for him to sit down, which he does, then takes more photos.
Where are the girls?
Heather is chasing Martha around in the field. I got Mary to go back to sleep a little while ago. She was up earlier than usual this morning.
I must have missed that. I didn't hear her crying.
I'm a lighter sleeper than you are.
Paul looks toward the field and glances at the fence for a moment. Linda takes another photo.
Before I forget to mention it, I need to go get some more film when we're back in London.
You've used up all that you've brought already?
Almost. This is my last roll.
I'll make sure to buy more than I did last time. Can't have you run out on us.
Thanks. We'll also have to get more photos developed.
Of course. Let's do that as soon as we get back.
Have you looked at the ones I took this summer yet?
No? You brought them here?
Yeah, I've sort of been organizing them. There are some nice ones of you in the studio.
I'll have to look at them today.
Linda nods and sits down next to Paul. She sets her camera down next to her.
I've been thinking about what you've told me so far.
Yeah? So have I.
I know. I'm wondering if the other three feel similarly to how you feel.
I doubt it. They have each other.
That doesn't mean they're fine, though.
No, not necessarily. I haven't spoken to them in a while, so I don't know for sure how they're doing. Why are you wondering about them?
Just because they lost the band, too. Things aren't the same for them anymore, either.
Yeah, but they still have each other. I'm the one they rallied against.
I know. But it wasn't like that all the time.
Used to be all four of us on the same team.
What I mean, though, is that you all worked well together on Abbey Road. It wasn't the three of them versus you then.
I promised George Martin we would put our differences aside for that album.
And you did.
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly. What happened?
End of scene. Scene 2, July 9th, 1969. Mid-afternoon, Studio 2 of Abbey Road Studios. It is a large room with lots of instruments and recording equipment scattered about. Paul is sitting alone, strumming a guitar. He's not playing any particular tune. After a few moments, Mal enters. He's dragging a double-sized bed behind him.
Al? What are you doing?
John asked me to bring this in for Yoko.
Are you kidding me?
He sets the bed down and wipes forehead.
Do you honestly think I would just bring a bed here for no reason?
Yeah, good point. Let me help you with that.
Paul goes over and helps Mal bring the bed into the studio. George walks in once they found a place for it in the corner.
What's that for?
John wants it for Yoko.
This is getting ridiculous.
They were in a pretty bad car accident.
Yeah, but I don't think a studio is the best place for her to be on bed rest. She won't be able to get much resting done.
I'm sure John just wants to make sure she's recovering well.
Well, I'm sure that Yoko is capable of taking care of herself. She should have stayed in the hospital if she can't.
I think she is capable of taking care of herself. She should have stayed. But it's only been a week since the crash. Recovery takes time.
I have a point, though, George. John can't look after her while he's recording. Maybe you should find a nurse to do it.
There are plenty of them in the hospital.
Probably would have kept her there if she needed to be there. Plenty of people get sent home for bed rest.
Yeah, they get sent home, not to a recording studio.
John and Yoko tend to do their own thing.
When have they ever done the sensible thing, though? It's one bad idea after another with those two.
Ringo enters the studio whistling. He stops when he sees the bed.
Hey, what's going on?
For Yoko.
Oh, all right. Well, at least she's on the mend. The crash banged her up more than it did John and the kids.
Why was John even driving in the first place? He's always been awful at it.
I don't know. I didn't ask. I just called to check in and see how they were.
Seems like Yoko is feeling well enough to accompany John to the studio.
I still think that's ridiculous.
Maybe she won't be too much of a bother.
It's not like she'll just be taking naps here. She'll still find a way to critique whatever is going on. You know, we actually got a lot done last week without her here.
We've completed albums with her here before. This one will get done too.
Does have a point.
Oh, I know he does. I don't get why Yoko insists on being here when she clearly doesn't like any of the stuff we record.
She wants to keep an eye on John.
George nods and starts setting up his part of the studio. Paul follows suit. Once they're done, 2 EMTs bring Yoko in on a stretcher. John trails in behind them, sulking. The EMTs place Yoko on the bed, help her get situated, and leave.
You've got...
Good to see both of you. How are you feeling?
John shrugs and sits on the edge of the bed. He whispers something to Yoko, and she whispers back. He stands, gets a microphone, and sets it up by Yoko's bed, close enough to her face that she won't have to move in order to speak into it.
You've got to be kidding me.
What's the mic for?
And speak without straining herself. She's on bed rest, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
I think it's good. Do you feel all right?
Yoko nods. John goes and grabs a guitar. He sits as close as he can to Yoko while still being close enough to record with the band.
So, I was thinking we could work on Maxwell Silver's hammer for the reel this time. It's been kicking around for a while, and we've rehearsed it enough to the point where we can actually record it.
We haven't rehearsed it since January.
Come on, it won't be that bad.
Fast forward a few days later, July 11th, 1969. John and Yoko aren't there, but the bed is still there. Mal sets down a hammer on an anvil that has been brought in, clearly exhausted.
Alright, that was pretty good. On this next take, let's get a stronger anvil sound, Mal.
Next take? You want to record it again?
Well, yeah, it's not quite good enough yet. We're almost there, though.
Oh, that's what you said 10 takes ago.
He's not exaggerating.
It hasn't been that bad.
This is the 3rd session we've dedicated to this song. How many more sessions is it going to take, Paul?
I said we're almost there.
You keep saying that, though. Nothing has been quite good enough.
You guys want to settle for mediocre work? We can do better than that. We have done better than that.
We're not settling for mediocre work.
Have you considered that this is just a mediocre song? Spending hours and hours recording it won't change that.
It's not a mediocre song.
Then what is it? It's not the masterpiece you seem to think it is.
You guys just haven't given it a chance.
That's all we've been doing the past few days.
Standing up.
Maybe we should take a break. I can go grab some food so we can have dinner.
Thanks, Mel.
Also,
Let's take a break.
George sets his bass guitar down and exits with Ringo and Mal. Paul turns back to the piano. He looks up toward the control room.
Is the tape still rolling? I'd like to record the piano and vocals again.
End of scene. Scene 3. Late November 1969. Paul's farm in Scotland. Morning. Paul and Linda are still sitting outside.
If it makes you feel any better, I like that song.
Glad I'm not the only one. The recording sessions for it really weren't all that bad. The others were just being overdramatic.
You don't seem too bothered by this.
It's just a song. I don't think there was any need to get too worked up over the fact they didn't like it. But if we had spent the same amount of time working on the song they had liked, there wouldn't have been any issues.
Yeah, why would there have been? They wouldn't have any reason to complain if they liked it.
There are plenty of songs we spend more time on than Maxwell's Silver Hammer, and not just the one I wrote. George conveniently forgot we did literally over 100 takes of his song, Not Guilty.
I don't think I know that one.
That's because we never released it.
Oh, well, that's a bit hypocritical of him then.
It is what it is. Honestly, out of all of the arguments we've ever had, that one wasn't too bad. Just strangely timed.
How so?
Everything else was going pretty well over the summer, all things considered. I just think it's strange that something as silly as a song could get them that worked up.
You said it didn't blow up, though.
It didn't, thankfully.
You know, maybe it wasn't just about the song.
What do you mean?
Maybe having that bed brought into the studio put them on edge. Maybe they wouldn't have complained about any song. Maybe they would have complained about any song you would have worked on that day.
That's a nice thought, but George and Ringo complained about the song even when Yoko wasn't there. John didn't show up after the first session we spent on it. They would have complained whether the bed was there or not.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I honestly don't mind that they don't like it. Thanks for trying to find an explanation, though.
That's what I'm here for. Did you know that would be the last album?
I don't think so. Why?
You said that you guys reached the point of no return in May, then you spent the summer making that album.
Yeah, I didn't give up on the band after that, though.
Why not? How do you keep the band going if you've reached the point of no return?
I thought there was still a chance we could make it work, and I still believe there were more things for us to accomplish.
Like what?
We could have gone on another tour. I think we could have easily made more albums. It's not like we had stopped writing songs, and we're still popular. I think a tour would have been successful.
Yeah. Depends on if the audience could hear you or not, though.
We could have gone out on stage and sat there for 30 minutes staring at each other, and the audience would have loved it. Most fans didn't show up to hear the music. They just wanted to see us.
Guess I was the odd one out at Shea Stadium.
Probably.
You suggested touring to the others, right?
Yeah. Obviously, they weren't too thrilled about the idea.
Why not?
I don't think they wanted to deal with that level of mayhem again. But I think we could have done a smaller tour quite easily.
Sure, if everyone had been on board.
Exactly. It is what it is, though.
I think that's another example of you being the proactive one.
Yeah. I tried to keep us going.
End of scene. Scene 4. September 8th, 1969, Apple Corps Limited office. John, Paul, and George are sitting around a desk. John is fiddling with a tape recorder in the middle of it.
This thing's on.
It should be fine.
Ringo, you can't be here, but this is so you can hear what we're discussing.
Hello, Ringo.
Hope you feel better soon.
Now we have some things to figure out. Our next album will be released in a few weeks. What should we do next? Another album? A Christmas single?
Do we even have anything to record?
Sure, we're always writing stuff. What about the stuff left over from India?
We use a lot of it already. You keep rejecting the rest of it.
Well, I'm open to reconsideration, and I'm sure you've written plenty of stuff since India. Paul, what about you?
I'm always writing songs. Plenty we could record.
Good. Now, I had an idea about that.
Really?
Yeah, I called this meeting, remember?
George rolls his eyes. Paul gestures for John to continue.
I'm thinking we could restructure future albums a bit. The three of us contribute 4 songs each. Ringo, you can contribute 2 songs if you'd like.
4 each?
Yeah, George's songwriting has really improved.
Just recently.
Really, Paul?
I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think your recent songs are better than the older ones. They're on the level of mine and John's now.
I wrote those songs a year or 2 ago, so I've been on your level longer than you think. But honestly, I really don't care what you think about my songs.
And see Paul's point. More people have talked to me lately about how good your songs are than before.
My songs are a regular topic of conversation for you.
I'm just saying I get what Paul is saying. It's not totally out of line.
I'm surprised you even have an opinion on my songs. You'd have to listen to them to have that.
Come on, George.
We played on them.
I don't recall the last time you came to the studio to work on one of my songs, John.
I played on something, but it doesn't seem like you need me to play on them when you bring Eric Clapton into the studio.
I did that one time. It was a year ago.
Having Eric in the studio didn't seem to bother you before.
And I thought George didn't care what we thought about his songs, but he's still talking about it.
Aren't you the one who wanted to replace me with Eric?
You quit the band. How was I supposed to know you were going to rejoin?
I heard that you suggested that minutes after I left.
Well, clearly nothing came of it. We gave you a chance to come back. We offered your spot to Eric. You took it, so I don't see what the problem is.
Let's just move on. I'm sure Ringo won't want to listen to if we keep it up like this.
Sorry, Ringo.
Everyone freezes except for Paul. Spotlight on him and Linda.
What exactly was the problem with having 4 songs each?
There wasn't necessarily a problem. We started arguing about George's songwriting before we could really talk it out.
It doesn't seem like you wanted George to have 4 songs.
That wasn't my finest moment. I do think he has really improved as a songwriter. It just came across the wrong way. I don't think John's idea would have worked out had we actually tried it.
Why not?
If we're guaranteed 4 songs, we could bring in whatever we wanted. None of us would have any room to say that a song shouldn't be on the album because it's not part of our allotted 4. Quality control is suddenly gone.
And that concerned you.
Of course it did. John could have brought in 4 experimental songs he did with Yoko, and none of us would have any room to tell him that stuff doesn't belong on a Beatles album. We really wouldn't have been the Beatles anymore had we gone along with that.
Spotlight's down. Scene resumes.
I would just like to say that I think, despite everything, we're still a great band. Even our worst days in the studio resulted in good songs. We still have a lot going for us.
Mostly good songs. I don't think any of us liked Maxwell's Silver Hammer.
I did. I still do.
You don't have to say that just because you wrote it. I hate most of the songs I've written, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
I've written enough songs to know when one isn't worth recording. I spent a lot of time on it because I saw the potential in it. The rest of you didn't even give it a chance.
Okay. Whatever you say. But next time, consider giving a song like that away so we can record stuff we all like.
Record stuff we all like? I believe you're the only one who liked Revolution 9.
You didn't even play on that one, Paul.
I don't mind it.
All I'm saying is that I'm not the only one who has brought in stuff the rest of the band hasn't liked. Both of you have done it.
We don't force the rest of the band to record that stuff again and again, though.
Is there anything else you want to discuss? I'd like to get this meeting over with.
Yeah. I think all of our songs should be individually credited.
What's wrong with Lennon-McCARTNey?
What's wrong with it? When was the last time we wrote a song together, Paul? I think I should get credit for my stuff and you should get credit for yours. That way people stop assuming I wrote something I didn't.
How often does that happen? I can't recall a single time someone has assumed I wrote one of your songs.
Lucky you.
Really? John? How often does that happen to you?
It has happened enough for me to be bothered by it.
That can mean it happened once for all I know. It's really not that big of a deal.
Obviously, it's not to you.
Why does it matter if you hate most of the songs you've written anyway?
I don't think this part of the conversation concerns me or Ringo. Unless you have something to say that does, I'm gonna go.
Fine. We can talk about this later.
Fast forward a few days later, September 20th, 1969. The same office as before. John and Paul sit in the same spots as before. Ringo has taken George's seat as he is not in the meeting.
Anyway, I think getting back on the road again would be really good for us. We can go back to our roots, revisit what made us such a great band in the first place.
Paul.
Just let me finish, please. We haven't toured in 3 years, and the tour I'm thinking of now wouldn't be a grand one like we used to do. I'm thinking we could play a bunch of small gigs, like we did in the really early days. Only this time we're not trying to make it, we have made it. This is just a way to reconnect with the crowds and experiences the energy and enthusiasm again.
No.
What's wrong with that idea?
The Beatles aren't touring anymore.
We decided that 3 years ago. I think enough time has gone by that it's okay to change our minds.
I haven't changed my mind. The Beatles won't go on tour again.
Why not? What do you have against it?
Klein told me not to tell you, but I don't have much of a choice now.
What's going on, John?
I'm leaving the band. Klein wanted me to wait until the new EMI contract was signed.
He picks up a pen and signs one of the papers on the desk.
I let it slip just slightly too early.
Slides the pen and paper across the desk to Paul.
You serious, John?
Why would I be joking? I started the Beatles and now I'm ending them.
Just like that.
Just like that. It's been a long time coming, don't you think?
A long time coming? 2 weeks ago you were talking about doing another album and a Christmas single.
I changed my mind.
Why?
I want to do other things with my career. Yoko and I have a lot of stuff in the works.
Of course you do.
I'm tired of dividing my time up between two things. I can't do my best work that way.
Seem to have been doing just fine. We've all done side projects, and none of them have taken away from what we've been doing together.
But the Beatles have taken away from what I can do with Yoko. There are more opportunities for me there than here. The Beatles had a good run. It's time to move on.
I disagree, John. We're still having a good run. There's still so many things we can do.
Like what? We're not forging new ground anymore. We've done all there is.
Once again, I disagree. What can you do with Yoko musically that you can't do with us?
You'll find out once the project gets released. Paul, you can't change my mind. The Beatles are over.
Paul stares at John, then at the paper in front of him. Ringo glances between the other two.
Does George know about this?
No. I'm sure he'll find out as soon as he's back in town, though. He still hasn't signed the contract.
He points to the paper in front of Paul.
You haven't either.
Point of signing it if you're ending the band.
This contract is better than the last one. We just have to release 2 albums a year. It doesn't matter if the albums are as a group or individually. We'll have no problem meeting that requirement and we'll get money for it. The rest of you just have to sign it, though.
Paul hesitates before glancing over the contract and signing it. He slides it over to Ringo, who signs it quickly. He hands it back to John.
Thank you. I'll give this to Klein and I'll make sure he gets George to sign it too.
Then what?
We go our separate ways. We're free. Oh, before I forget, you can't tell anyone about this.
The fact that you're leaving the band?
Yeah. Klein is working on some stuff and it won't look too good if people know I ended this.
Then what's the point of working on it? Apparently there's not a band anymore.
Money, Paul. Remember?
It's hard to forget that that's all you seem to care about these days.
Rolls his eyes, then glances at his watch. He stands up.
There's really no reason for me to be here anymore. I'll probably see you both around.
John leaves. Paul and Ringo look at each other, not sure what to do. End of scene. Scene 5, late November 1969, Paul's farm in Scotland. Morning. Paul and Linda are still sitting outside.
Ringo and I weren't sure at the time if John actually meant it. Clearly he did.
So that was the end.
Yeah.
You didn't seem that torn up about it at the time.
I don't think it hit me until we came here.
Probably. You seemed fine in London.
I was too busy there to think about it.
And now that's all you do.
What?
All you do is think about the band breaking up. What? I'm not wrong, am I?
It's not the only thing I do.
Well, then it has certainly taken up the majority of your time.
What are you getting at, Linda?
I just think you need to start moving on. Start putting more of your focus on me and the girls.
We've gone over this already. I spend time with all of you every day.
But you don't focus on us.
Of course I do.
You didn't even realize I brought the photos I took this summer up here.
Okay, that's one thing I missed, yeah? But that doesn't mean I don't focus on you.
You don't really ask about what's going on with me.
What's going on with you?
That doesn't count.
I mean it. What's going on? It's clear you think there's something I should be aware of.
You should be aware of me. What I'm doing, how I'm feeling, what I may need from you.
Well, I thought I was.
Really?
I don't ignore you. All we do here is spend time together. I didn't realize you felt like I wasn't focusing on you enough.
You've been so wrapped up in your own head lately.
Well, I've been dealing with a lot of things.
I'm very aware of that.
I don't think you understand, though.
I understand that you feel like you lost your career. I understand that you're having a difficult time with your friends.
But it's more than that. Do you know how much pressure I've been under as a Beatle? You don't know what it's like to be Paul McCartney.
Ugh, the great Paul McCartney, musical genius.
I mean it, Linda. You don't know what it's like going through what the Beatles did.
Can't you give me credit for trying?
Sure, you tried.
You don't have to act like that.
You wanted some credit, so I gave it to you. What's the problem?
You're being rude about it?
I thought you were trying to help me. Why are you suddenly getting after me for this?
All I'm doing is telling you that you need to start helping yourself. You have to step up at some point. I can't force you to get over this, and I can't force you to sort out how you feel about things. At some point, you're going to have to decide if you're going to move on or if you're just going to be stuck here.
Obviously, I don't want to be stuck here. I don't like feeling like this.
So what are you going to do?
I haven't figured that out yet. What?
You keep saying you haven't figured it out yet. When will you?
I don't know. Just because I'm not getting over it as fast as you'd like me to doesn't mean I never will.
You have to start making an effort, though.
I have been. I get up and spend time with you and the girls every day. We've ridden horses and gone on walks and sat in the field out there. I even tried to fix that fence. I'm not the lazy guy you seem to think I am.
I never said that.
Well, it seems like it.
Paul, try seeing things from my perspective. It's not easy watching your spouse spiral downward and feeling like there's nothing you can do to stop it.
It's not easy being the one who is spiraling. I lost pretty much everything I had going for me. Not just a career, but my closest friends. You don't get it, Linda. You can try to understand, but you never will. You didn't go through the past 10 years with me. I know you've lost things too, but never something this big.
I never expected to understand what being a Beatle is like. I know I won't be able to, but why do I have to understand that part of your life in order to help you?
You'd get off my case if you did. You'd understand how important it all was to me.
Then how about you go to John, George, or Ringo for help, because apparently they're the only ones capable of giving it to you.
You know I can't do that.
Sure you can. Just call them up. You can tell them all about how devastated you are. I'm sure they'll understand because they're Beatles too. Maybe you can get through the band breakup together.
You don't have to act like this, Linda. I'm not saying you can't try to help me.
Really? Because that's what it sounds like.
I'm just saying that you can't tell me how to go about dealing with this. I'm a grown man.
Then act like one.
Really, Linda?
Be a grown man and pull yourself together.
I'm working on that. But you have to understand that I'm just a normal guy and that this stuff takes time.
You're a normal guy? I thought you were the great Paul McCartney, musical genius.
You're really going to throw that in my face right now?
You can either be Paul McCartney or you can be a normal guy. You can't have it both ways.
Do you honestly think I haven't been trying to pull myself together?
I don't see how you have. I've been the one working to pull you out of this.
I've been working with you the past few days. I just finished telling you about everything that happened. Talking about it doesn't mean everything will just go back to normal, though. You have to give me time.
How much time do you need?
How am I supposed to answer that?
I just want to get an idea of what you're thinking. Do you want another month to mope around? 2? I don't want to wait indefinitely.
Come on, Linda.
What?
No, I've been going through a hard time. I'm not just moping around.
You have to stop using that as an excuse.
Use what as an excuse?
The fact that you're having a hard time.
What? I'm not using it as an excuse.
So what are you doing?
I'm being honest. If I weren't having a hard time, I wouldn't say that.
You have to pick yourself up at some point, though.
I know. I get it. But just because you've picked yourself up right away before doesn't mean I have to.
I've never picked myself back up right away. I might not totally get what you're going through, but I've gone through similar emotions before. At some point, I got sick of feeling them, and that's when I picked myself up.
I'm not you, though. What worked for you may not work for me.
Do you want my help or not?
Why wouldn't I?
You've been giving me a hard time for trying to help you for a few days now. But then the moment I express frustration, you're upset that I'm not helping you. That's not fair.
How have I been giving you a hard time? You wanted me to talk about the band breaking up, so I did.
When I first suggested that you talk to me about it, you said you didn't need to.
But I ended up talking about it anyway.
You also resisted when I tried to get you out of bed.
I didn't stay in bed all day, did I? I've never done that.
You're missing my point. Yes, you ended up talking to me and getting out of bed. But do you realize how much I had to push you to get you to do those things? You weren't willing to accept my help.
Okay, well, sorry I don't accept the help the instant you offer it. I can try to be better about that in the future, but I'm not perfect. I may not be everything you want me to be, but you still chose to marry me.
Linda picks up her camera and stands up. She starts to walk toward the house.
What are you doing?
I'm going inside.
Paul stands up.
Don't.
What?
I don't want you to follow me in. I want some space. I'm not going to argue about this anymore.
You're not going to finish this?
Not right now. I think you've been taking me for granted lately.
How?
It seems like you just expect me to be here. You haven't considered how I feel or asked me how I'm doing. I've been putting a lot of work into this relationship, and I haven't been receiving much in return. Sorry that I wasn't one of the Beatles. Sorry that I don't understand the toll fame has taken on you. But maybe you should start to appreciate the life I'm offering you. I'm your wife. You chose to marry me.
Linda looks at Paul for a moment, then goes inside. Paul sits back down. End of scene. Scene 6, mid-October 1969. Paul's farm in Scotland. Mid-afternoon. Paul is sitting outside. He's cradling baby Mary in his arms. A phone can be heard ringing inside. Shortly after, Linda steps outside. Shortly after, Linda steps outside.
Paul, you have a phone call.
Is it my dad or Mike?
No, it's Derek.
I told Derek and everyone else at Apple not to bother me here.
I'm sure he has a good reason.
Paul deliberates for a few moments before standing up and passing Mary to Linda. He steps inside and picks up the phone. Lights up on another part of the stage, Derek Taylor's office at Apple Corps Limited, London, England. Derek is sitting at his desk. His hair is slightly disheveled, as if he has been running his hands through it.
Hello, Derek.
Well, I'm glad to hear the rumors aren't true.
What rumors?
There's one going around that you died a few years ago.
That one has been going around for a while now, Derek.
Yes, but we've gotten more calls than usual about it lately. It's been picking up over the last few weeks.
Why?
I'm not sure exactly. I don't think I have all the details yet, but I do know that this resurgence started in America.
So how did I die in this American rumor? Another car accident?
Something like that. This one is more complicated than the original, though.
How so?
Well, some people are saying the other three Beatles hired a look-alike to replace you.
That's absurd.
I know. I don't understand it.
That's because you don't buy into stuff like this.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we've been getting a lot of calls about it. Quite a few from American disc jockeys, and the press has been calling frequently as well.
Great. What have you told them?
The same thing I've been saying the last few years. You're alive and well and still with us. I've added in the fact that you and Linda recently had a baby, so you're taking time away with your family.
I didn't necessarily want my time away to be publicized.
I know. I didn't tell them where you went. But I think your lack of public appearances lately has contributed to the rumor.
How so?
Oh, it gives them more proof that you're dead.
How? According to them, I was replaced a few years ago. So technically, it's the lookalike who hasn't been seen lately.
I guess so. I'm not sure if that matters to them, though. They just think you're dead.
First time I take a break in years, and this is what I get.
What do you mean?
Just that I take a break, and suddenly people are convinced I died.
I don't know how much of the general public actually believes the rumor. It's just receiving more attention right now.
But now the press is talking about it, which could increase how many people believe it.
They're not publishing your obituary, Paul. They're just talking about the rumor.
Sure. I just don't like being at the center of a conspiracy.
Yeah, I get that. I wouldn't either.
Paul sits down in a chair by the phone.
I can assume that because you didn't realize the rumor came back, you probably don't read the newspaper up there?
No, not really. Why?
Well, John and Ringo have been asked about this.
Great. What have they said?
Derek shuffles through some of the newspapers on his desk and then reads from one.
Ringo said if people are going to believe it, they're going to believe it. I can only say it's not true. John said that while the rumor is insane, it's good publicity for the album.
Since when did John care about Abbey Road?
Oh, I don't know. I just thought you'd like to know what they said.
Yeah, it's nice to know they aren't perpetuating things.
Why would they? They have nothing to gain from you being dead.
I guess so.
Well, how do you feel about giving some sort of statement on the matter?
I'm taking a break right now.
I know. I just think it might help this to go away.
What would I even say? They could just claim I'm the lookalike trying to cover this up.
I guess they could. We can't control what they'll think of it, but it will reduce the amount of speculation the press is doing. They'll publish whatever you say and then move on to cover some other issue.
Maybe. But I'd rather just have some peace and quiet with my family. I don't want to be dealing with the press right now. I came to Scotland to get away from all of that.
I know, Paul. I respect that. But I do think that this would help.
This whole thing is ridiculous.
I agree. I wouldn't worry too much about it, Paul. It's just a silly rumor.
I know. I usually don't mind. But on top of everything else that has been going on, this one bothers me.
I get it. What do you say, though? Shall I arrange for someone to prove you're alive?
I guess. Make it quick, though. I'd like as much peace and quiet with my family as possible.
Of course. Thank you, Paul. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Lights down on Derek's part of the stage. Paul hangs up the phone and goes back outside. He pauses a moment and looks at Linda, still holding Mary. Her back is to him. He goes over and wraps his arms around her.
Apparently I'm dead.
What? What happened?
Just an absurd rumor. Derek is arranging for someone from the press to come up here and prove I'm still around.
Oh, all right. I thought the whole point of us coming here was to get away from all that.
It was. Unfortunately, my responsibilities never truly end, even in death.
Fame isn't all it's cracked up to be, huh?
Not right now. No.
End of scene. Scene 7, late November 1969, Paul's farm in Scotland. Late afternoon. Paul is sitting outside working on the gap in the fence. He's hammering a nail into it. It's not quite fixed, but it's looking better. A few moments pass before Linda steps outside holding a newspaper. She stands and watches Paul for a while. He doesn't notice.
Paul?
Paul turns around suddenly, dropping the hammer. Linda holds up the newspaper.
I brought this for you.
Thanks. What for?
There's a story in it I thought you might like to read.
What is it?
How about you read it and find out?
All right. Bring it over here.
Linda doesn't move. After a moment, Paul stands up and goes to her. He takes the newspaper and reads it.
The Rolling Stones actually fired Klein?
Apparently so.
I knew he was robbing them. Here's the proof John wanted a few months ago.
Now you can give it to him.
No, it's too late now.
How do you know that?
The other three signed a contract with Klein. Getting out of that would be a mess.
So you're just going to let that stop you? You won't even try?
I honestly don't think they'll even listen to me if I showed them this. They didn't care that the Rolling Stones were having their finances investigated. So why would they care that Klein has been fired?
Getting fired is different than an investigation.
They still won't care.
Why not?
Because apparently whatever the Stones do with Klein has no impact on us. Because we are the Beatles.
Were the Beatles.
Were. Yeah.
I wish you would just talk to the other three, Paul. You're assuming they won't care, but maybe you're wrong.
I've spent pretty much this whole year trying to change their minds about Klein. Nothing I did worked.
But now you have actual evidence to back yourself up. Klein was robbing the Rolling Stones, and they fired him because of it. This is your chance to change their minds about him.
There's no point, Linda. It's too late.
You are very stubborn.
What does that have to do with this?
You think you can't change their minds, and you're being stubborn about it. I think you can, but you aren't listening to me.
I am, but that doesn't mean I have to agree with you.
Just like how the others listened to you about Klein?
What?
You told me you kept asking them to listen to you. Maybe they were. Doesn't mean they had to agree with you.
Linda goes back inside. Paul stands there for a moment, then goes back to the fence and starts hammering in another nail. End of scene. Scene 8, early December 1996, nighttime. Paul's living room at 7 Cavendish Avenue. Linda enters, carrying a stack of mail. She sits on the couch and begins to sort through it, then notices a notebook on the coffee table. She sets the mail down and picks the notebook up. As she reads it, Paul enters, holding a cup of tea. He is surprised to see her.
What are you doing with that?
With what?
My notebook.
Reading it?
May I ask why?
You left it open right here.
I set it down while I was making some tea.
Linda keeps reading. Paul stands there for a moment before sitting next to her on the couch. He reaches for the notebook, but she keeps it out of his grasp.
I'm not done reading yet.
I'm not done writing yet.
Hold on a moment.
I didn't expect you to be in here and pick my notebook up.
Do you have a problem with that? You haven't seemed to mind before.
No, it's just the one of the songs I'm working on is for you. It's not done yet.
Oh, this one? Maybe I'm amazed?
Yeah.
That seems great to me.
It doesn't have a second verse yet.
Does it need one?
Well, yeah.
Oh. But what you have now is quite nice.
Hopefully you'll like the rest of it.
I don't see why I wouldn't.
Linda finishes reading and hands the notebook to Paul.
For someone who hasn't been in the mood to write lately, you sure do have a lot of stuff in there.
Some of it is old.
Quite a bit of it is new, though.
A few of the songs are, yeah. They've been in my head for a few days now, so I figured I should write them down. Don't want to forget them.
What inspired you to write again?
You did. You helped to clear my head. I realized that I was more focused on what I lost rather than what I had. Wrapped up in my own head, as you said.
And you're not anymore?
I don't think so.
If I'd known that arguing with you would get you to write again, I would have done it a lot sooner.
Now you know for next time.
I'd rather there not be a next time.
That's fair. Me too.
When you finish writing that song for me, I want you to record it.
Record it with who? I don't really have a band anymore.
Do it by yourself. This isn't a Beatles song. It's a Paul McCartney song. You really could do it by yourself. You play about 1,000 instruments.
Not quite 1,000.
That was close enough. You can play enough instruments to record it. It's not much of a song if it never gets recorded.
Fair enough. I'll do it. For you.
Thank you. You know, you have enough stuff in there for an entire album.
You want me to record an entire album by myself?
Sure. Why not?
I don't know. I've recorded a few songs on my own before, but never an entire album.
You're more than capable of doing it.
It's a big undertaking.
Don't think of it as an album then. Just take it one step at a time.
I've never done something like this completely on my own before. I've always had the others to work with.
You know, after my divorce, I was completely on my own. Well, I had Heather, but she wasn't even 3 yet. I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't want to move back to New York and rely on my dad. I wanted to provide for myself and make it on my own.
And you did.
It took some time, and it took some work, but yeah, I did. You don't have the support of your bandmates anymore, but that shouldn't stop you. You can make it on your own.
Not totally on my own. I have you.
You always will.
You really think I could do an entire album?
Yes, absolutely.
You could record it with me.
I'm not a musician, Paul.
So? I've heard you sing before. You have a nice voice. You could sing the backup vocals on these songs.
I'm not as good a singer as you.
You know, I failed choir auditions twice when I was a kid.
You did not.
I did, honest. The choir director didn't think I was good enough.
Big mistake on his part.
Maybe. Point is, though, that not everyone thinks I'm a great singer, but that didn't stop me from making music. And I think you're a great singer, Linda.
Thanks.
It would be really nice making some songs with you.
All right. I'll do it backup vocals only, though.
Thank you.
You should finish those songs, though, before I change my mind.
On it.
Paul picks up a pencil. Linda goes back to sorting the mail. End of scene. Scene 9, March 31st, 1970. Just outside Paul's house at 7 Cavendish Avenue, early afternoon. Ringo enters and stops as he gets to the gate. He takes an envelope out of his coat pocket, looks at it, then puts it back. He starts to take a step closer to the gate, but then stops and pulls the envelope out of his pocket again. He takes a deep breath and then pushes on the gate. He is surprised to find it unlocked. He walks up to the front door and knocks. No response. He knocks again. After a few moments, rustling can be heard on the inside and Paul opens the door.
Oh. Hello, Richie. Nice to see you.
Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm alright. Mary was up for most of the night, so we're getting a pretty late start today.
I've been there before.
Paul glances at the envelope in Ringo's hand but doesn't say anything. He steps out onto the porch and shuts the door behind him.
Nice day today.
Yeah, it is.
So why did you come by?
Yeah, right. I wanted to give this to you. They were going to have some office assistant do it, but I figured it'd be best if it came from one of us.
They?
John and George wrote this.
Paul takes the envelope from Ringo. He takes his time opening it.
Dear Paul, we've thought a lot about yours and the Beatles LPs and decided it's stupid for Apple to put out 2 big albums within 7 days of each other. Also, there's Ringo's and Hey Jude. So we sent a letter to EMI telling them to hold your release date till June 4th. There's a big Apple Capital convention in Hawaii then. We thought you'd come around when you realized that the Beatles album was coming out on April 24th. We're sorry it turned out like this. It's nothing personal. Love, John and George. Hare Krishna, a mantra a day keeps a Maya away. Why do they think they have a say in when my album comes out?
It's being released on our label.
But it's my album.
And it's our label. It's not up to you.
When have I ever interfered with anyone else's solo projects? You have no right to move my album's release date without my consent.
I didn't make this decision. John and George did.
Well, you didn't do anything to stop them, did you? You didn't think to inform me about this earlier either? You didn't give me a chance to have a say in this.
I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. Neither did they.
Of course you didn't! Why would any of you care about something I made?
We do care, which is why your album got moved.
That's not how this works, Ringo. You know full well that this isn't okay.
Sorry, Paul.
Sorry? You three have been screwing me over for months now, and you're sorry?
This decision wasn't about you. It's about the business.
The business? When have any of you ever cared about the business? You can't just move my album release date back without my input. This has been scheduled for months now, long before it was decided the Get Back project would be released.
Paul,
George was there when I was arranging this and said it was fine. Now he's saying it's not because it's more convenient for him that way? This is ridiculous. We didn't push back your album or any of John and George's projects.
That stuff didn't conflict with the Beatles' release.
I didn't make this a conflict. You guys did. Get Back wasn't scheduled for release when I arranged for my album to be. I did nothing wrong here, and I'm getting screwed for it. Again.
Again?
You three have been against me for ages. Don't you remember when all 4 of us had a say in band decisions? We agreed that even if one person vetoed an idea, we wouldn't do it. We were all or nothing. What happened to that? I've been vetoing stuff for months, and it still has happened.
It's been for the good of the band.
The band that John ended a few months ago?
There are still a lot of business opportunities for the Beatles.
Says who? Alan Klein?
Don't do this, Paul.
Do what? It's not like anything I do matters anymore. Did you really expect me to be okay with this?
I don't know. All I thought is that it would be better coming from one of us.
Wow. You are so considerate. That really makes everything so much better.
You have to understand that the fact that you have your own manager makes things difficult.
I don't want Klein anywhere near my...
Yeah, I know. But there's absolutely no communication between him and the Eastmans. Klein represents most of the band, so he made this decision to release Let It Be.
This wouldn't have happened if you all had just listened to me.
You're the only one who has had a problem with him. The Eastmans being our lawyers didn't work out, but you didn't have to make them your managers.
I didn't have any other choice.
Paul glances over the letter again. Ringo takes a deep breath.
I'm sorry this made you so upset.
Like hell you are. I'm going to say this once, okay? My album will be coming out on April 17th as originally planned. I don't care if it messes things up for Get Back. If sales are really that important to you, then move Get Back to a different day. I will not be changing my plans to make things more convenient for you.
It will hurt sales for your album too.
Then move Get Back! I scheduled my album first. This whole thing is because you guys have to have things go your way all of the time.
That's not it.
It's to coincide with the film release.
That one in May? Move the album to May! It's really not that hard, Ringo.
Paul!
You know what? Just get out. Just go.
What?
Go! Get out! Clearly the album is more important to you than I am, so just go!
Ringo starts to say something, but thinks better of it and leaves. He glances back a few times at Paul. Once Ringo is gone, Paul crumples the letter and throws it to the ground. He sits on the porch, puts his elbows on his knees, and rests his head in his hands. Blackout. End of scene. Scene 10. April 10th, 1970. Paul's living room at 7 Cavendish Avenue. The phone is ringing, though no one comes to pick it up. It stops. A few seconds later, it rings again. No one comes to answer it. The third time it starts ringing, Paul enters and answers it.
Hello?
Lights up on another part of the stage. Derek Taylor's office at the Apple Corps Limited. He is at his desk, looking a bit frustrated. Crumpled papers litter the floor around him.
Nice of you to finally pick up.
I was outside with Linda and the girls. What's going on?
What's going on? Are you serious, Paul?
I've been outside all morning, Derek. It's a nice day.
Well, I'm sorry to ruin your peaceful morning. It's absolute chaos here.
Like usual?
No, not at all like usual. The press is crowding the building along with screaming and crying girls.
What happened, Derek? I genuinely have no idea.
The Daily Mirror published the press release you sent them yesterday.
That's it?
Yeah, it created a real mess for us.
I don't think I'm quite following along. People are crowding the building because of the McCARTNey press release? Hello? Are you still there?
Paul, the headline for the Daily Mirror today is Paul quits the Beatles.
What? I didn't quit the Beatles.
Well, your press release certainly made everyone think so.
I didn't even say that. I said this album was a break from the Beatles.
I know, but you also said that you don't think you'll ever write with John again, that you didn't miss working with the others, and that you're not planning on doing another album or single with them. Altogether, the press took that to mean you left the band.
I think this got blown out of proportion, Derek.
It definitely did.
What did the others say?
Well, George is here, but he's refusing to speak to the press. Ringo said this was all news to him, and John joked it was nice to know you're still alive and that he kicked you out of the band. John is livid, though, but luckily he didn't let the press know that.
Why is he livid?
He left the band a few months ago, but had to stay quiet about it. To him, it appears like you're just setting and following your own agenda.
I'm not. That's not it at all.
I know, Paul, but I also know how this came across. It doesn't look too good.
Great. Once again, I'm the one being blamed for everything.
I wouldn't go as far as that yet. It's blowing up right now, but it'll settle down soon.
It will settle, but I'll be more on the outs than I already am. I haven't even done anything to deserve it.
You know I don't get involved in band relations. I'm just in charge of dealing with the press.
Yeah. How have you dealt with them today?
I haven't done much. I just wrote a press release that sounds fancy, though in reality it says nothing.
Can I hear it?
Sure.
He finds the press release paper and reads from it.
Spring is here, and Leeds play Chelsea tomorrow, and Ringo and John and George and Paul are alive and well and full of hope. The world is still spinning, and so are we, and so are you. When the spinning stops, that'll be the time to worry. Not before. Until then, the Beatles are alive and well, and the beat goes on. The beat goes on.
Beat goes on. That's a nice thought.
I think it will no matter what happens. I should get going. There's probably more work to be done.
Okay. Sorry about all of this.
There's always something, isn't there? Goodbye, Paul.
Goodbye.
Lights down on Derek's part of the stage. Paul hangs up the phone but doesn't stand up. Linda enters.
Is everything okay?
No. Press is saying I left the Beatles.
Why?
Press release I sent out yesterday.
Linda sits on the armrest of Paul's chair.
I just don't understand. John is apparently livid that this happened, but this is what he wanted. He wanted to end the band, and I didn't fight him on it.
He's probably upset that this announcement didn't happen on his terms.
Just seems like I'm in the wrong no matter what I do. I tried to keep the band together when they wanted to split. I announced that I don't see a future with the band, and everyone is upset. But they didn't see a future with it, otherwise they would have stayed.
People are complicated. There's probably stuff going on that we don't know about.
Wish they would just talk to me then. They can't expect me to read their minds.
It's not like the old days.
No, not at all. We were invincible back then.
Things will be okay, Paul. One chapter ends, another begins.
This ending isn't particularly great.
No. But on the bright side, you're not in limbo anymore.
How so?
The world knows now. You can actually move on.
Yeah, I guess. It's been over 6 months since John told us he was leaving. How long were we supposed to keep it quiet?
Exactly. It's probably good this happened, though that doesn't mean it's easy.
You're right.
I know. Let's go back outside now. The girls want to play with you.
Paul and Linda stand up. He takes her hand as they walk off stage. End of play.
Okay. I am assuming people are clapping wherever they are. I'm clapping. I'd like to invite Elise to come onto this Zoom stage, and Lexie, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Tremendous job. Let me just say to the audience right now, this is a great time for you to start to put your messages or questions into the chat. I'm going to have a few questions for our writer and director. If you've got some things ready to go, we'll be able to access those too. All right, Elise, here's the first thing that occurs to me. You could have written a play about the beginning of the Beatles, about how the band got started, or you could have written about how the White Album got made or something like that. You chose to write about the end of the Beatles. Why?
I think the ending is one of the most talked about parts of their story. Just because I feel like a lot of things people say is like, well, what would have happened if they had continued? And there's a lot of like, what if? But like the reality is that they didn't continue. Like this was the end. And so exploring why this was the end. I've been a fan of the Beatles for quite a few years now. And something odd that I've noticed is that Paul gets blamed for the breakup like constantly. And that's always baffled me because no one broke up the Beatles. Like you can't blame one particular person for this. Like there were just so many things that contributed to this, that they got to a point where the only thing to do was break up. Like they got to a point where they just couldn't continue on with each other anymore. But people like putting the blame on Paul. And so coming up with the idea for this play, I focused on the ending just because I wanted to get my opinion out there and show that no, Paul wasn't at fault for this. No one was at fault for this. And hopefully clear things up a little bit.
Thank you. That's a great answer. That one of the questions that the audience might want to answer as they make observations about this play is, by the end of the play, are you convinced by Elise about what Paul's role was in the breakup of the Beatles? Okay. I just want to say, I want to go on record as saying that I was in 8th grade. I was in the lunch line at Seoul Foreign School in Korea when I heard that the Beatles had broken up. And the fact that I remember that with such clarity and detail shows that it was an astonishingly important cultural moment, at least for, well, I was going to say folks my age at the time, but kind of for everybody. And it blows my mind that it took me from then until now to meet the person who knows everything about the Beatles, who not only wasn't born then, but wasn't even like thought of, that.
Yeah.
It feels to me, as we approach the end of the play this time, Elise, and I heard Derek read the quote, which I believe about the beat goes on and Chelsea is playing. That's a direct quote, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what Derek Taylor actually wrote.
The beat goes on, and then McCartney repeats that. That feels sort of like part of the meaning of this play. Can you comment on that?
Sure. I think that out of everything Derek Taylor wrote in that, because he says that he wrote something that actually says nothing, but I think the beat goes on says something, because like this was the end of the Beatles, even though like the world found out about it on April 10th, as we learned in my play, John left back in September, so it had been about 6 or 7 months. So people who were like on the inside and they knew, like obviously like the world was still going, even though the Beatles weren't a thing anymore. And so getting that idea out into the world to kind of help smooth things over, I think Derek Taylor had a really good instinct there. And just shows that like, yeah, maybe the Beatles aren't together anymore, but like you still have their music. Like the 4 of them individually are still here. They're probably going to be doing stuff. And so even though they're not the Beatles anymore, like the beat is going to go on, like time is going to move on. Like this is not the end of the world.
Nicely said. I'm going to put a bookmark in this for a minute and come back to you because I want to go to Lexie now. Beautiful job, Lexie. Here's my first question for you anyway. This occurred to me while I was watching again. Let's suppose you had all the money in the world to produce this play. And also that there were no copyright issues about Beatles music or anything like that. In your mind, what would this play look like on stage? And what would it sound like? After you did such a good job with this and with a reading and with all the Zoom sort of limitations, although I'm impressed how the cast turned some of those limitations into strengths. But on stage, how would it look?
Well, I can tell you how it would sound, and maybe from there I'll start wiggling my way to how it would look. Something Elise and I did that was so much fun in the workshop, which we kind of barely touched on, was we played a little bit of Beatles music, and she and I kind of talked about trying to use it in scene transitions, but we got so caught up in the wonderful acting and stuff that was kind of put on the back burner a little bit. But as I was talking to her about what we want the music to be, it was incredible how much thought she put into. She was like, okay, well, for this scene, maybe this song, and she sent me a detailed list, and that was just so much fun to see. And also it was great homework to get to listen to the Beatles.
Yeah.
By that. But as for what it would look like, it's almost an intimidating question, because the Beatles are a very intimidating topic, and Elise has tackled it so wonderfully, just as far as the characters. Everyone knows who these people are, and she's written them so well that these actors have been able to kind of get their paws on them. But yeah, I think you stumped me.
Well, I may come back to you on that with a better question. I don't think must not have been a very good question. Gosh, Elise, is Linda McCartney the hero of this play?
Yeah, I kind of touched on this in my program note, but I honestly believe Paul wouldn't have the solo career he currently has if it weren't for Linda, for quite a few reasons. First of all, being the one that she kind of gets the ball rolling and gets him to actually start a solo career. Would he have if Linda hadn't done that? I would assume so, but that's getting into like what if territory, you know. And but yeah, I'd say she's the hero because in the first scene of my play, it takes place in November of 1969, and so they got married in March of 1969. So they hadn't been married all that long, you know. And so having to like go through all of this with like your new spouse and trying to start your life together, I'm sure was not what she had in mind when she married Paul. And something that he's talked about in interviews quite a few times over the years is that Linda like saw the state he was in and was like, well, this is not okay. Like, you got to get yourself together. And she's like kind of got him back into shape. And so I'd say if you were to ask Paul that question, he'd probably say a similar thing that I just did. I honestly think Linda's the hero.
Nice. Really nice. Okay, Lexie, what was it like to work with these actors in this play? I mean, it's interesting you talk about it being intimidating to direct a play on the Beatles. It's got to be a little intimidating to play a Beatle, maybe. But what was it like for you to work with these actors? How did you overcome their incredible fear of being a Beatle?
Honestly, it was the script. You know, while like the intimidation of like these iconic characters that everyone's known since they were wee little babes, and like they're these like iconic, almost like godlike glorified people, but then Elise turned them into like people that like we see having a conversation and like with real emotion and real heart and real problems, and people who can't get out of bed in the morning, you know. And this beautiful relationship with Paul and Linda, I think especially kind of helped to ground the characters more in that. And you know, I also think like seeing them fight really helped.
Yeah.
And then of course the actors that we casted, and many of the actors that we weren't able to cast because can't have everyone as much as I wanted. But they just took it in such stride, and I think they kind of just approached them as characters, not as the Beatles, which lends itself really nicely to the script.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that you have to play that. You have to play them as people, and they did. I thought it was a great cast. Okay, I'm going to read some notes. I'm going to read some things in the chat. Brace yourself. I know you're really nervous about all this, Elise. Excellent work, everyone. Yes, Elise. What looks like possibly an emoji kiss. You're amazing, Elise. What a beautiful show. Elise, I was clapping, someone said. Here's a question. How many conversations in the play were previously documented, and how many were speculative?
That's a really good question, and I don't necessarily have like a number. But off the top of my head, ones that I can say that I based on like actual conversations are the first scene where we see all the Beatles and they're talking about Alan Klein. That's a meeting that actually happened. Obviously, I couldn't find any like verbatim stuff people said, so I just kind of took what had been said about the meeting and made it my own. The scene at the end where John, like the two meeting scenes where John first is like, let's make another album and a Christmas single. And then he's like, actually, no, the band is over. Beatles are done. That's a real meeting that happened. One of the lines in there is, at least one of the lines in there is verbatim, like his line where he's talking to the tape recorder and referring, like saying like, Ringo, you can't be here, but this is, so you know what's going on. Like that's verbatim what John said. And that meeting has been pretty well documented. And so I was able to kind of base a lot of that on that.
I'm going to talk about that moment where they're recording the Ballad of John and Yoko,
yeah.
And it's just McCartney and Lennon, but they call each other
right.
Harrison and Starr. What's that about?
Yeah, okay. I love that moment. That is verbatim. If you listen to like the Abbey Road like super deluxe 50th anniversary edition that came out in 2019, they include a lot of like outtakes and demos. And so there's a demo of John and Paul recording the song, and before they start the take, they say those lines like, go a bit faster, Ringo, okay, George, and then they go into the song. but John and Paul were the only Beatles there. They're the only Beatles who played on that song, so they were just joking around, pretending they had the full band with them. And I just like when I first listened to that, I just loved that moment because it just kind of showed, I don't know, like a return to normal almost. Like they got to a place where they were comfortable enough again to like joke around and record this song together, and it was just sort of like a relief from like the tensions from like the get back sessions and trying to find a manager. And so I felt like that specific part was really important to include the verbatim lines, just to try to show that yeah, things were hard and like it was a tense year, but there were still good moments throughout.
Yeah. I felt
so stuff like that is all throughout the script.
I felt quite wistful in that scene because I felt like I was getting a glimpse of the old days, kind of.
Yeah.
The old days of like 1967.
Right.
Not 1969.
No, not at all.
Okay, here's some more stuff. What happens to Klein?
Great question. He, like I said, fired by the Rolling Stones. They were in a lawsuit that lasted, I don't know how many years because I don't know all that much about the Rolling Stones, but it was messy, it was complicated. But in terms of like in terms of the Beatles, Paul was right about Klein. He was not good. He like, and I could go on and on about this, but for the purpose of time, I will say that on December 31st, 1970, Paul had to sue the other three Beatles because that was the only way to try to save everything they'd earned and everything they created up at that point before Klein could really mess things around and like get his hands on it and transfer it to like his possession. You know, it's kind of complicated. And so that's why the Beatles were involved in so many lawsuits with each other in the early 70s that I don't think got resolved until like 1974 or so, maybe 75. But basically what happens is that throughout all the lawsuits, the other three Beatles sort of came to the same place Paul had been, and they realized this guy is not really who we thought he was. Like, he's screwing us over. He's like using us, blah, 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 blah. And so they had quite a difficult time trying to separate themselves from Klein just due to legal stuff, contracts, whatever. But that like all got sorted out. Like the Beatles sort of came through. They were fine. You know, Paul kind of saved what they had done together, and then Klein, he still had a career. He was doing stuff. He got arrested for like tax evasion, I think, and maybe one other thing.
That's what we want to hear.
Right. Yeah. So he went to jail because he's not a great dude. But I can't remember exactly when, but it was after all the Beatles stuff that he finally went to jail. So that's just a quick sum up of what happened to him.
Someone says, I've never met a more devoted fan of the Beatles. I'm going to have to ask you to limit your Beatles answers to 100 words.
I'll try.
And then everyone else have to pay for the seminar that you give later.
Okay.
Let's see. Can you tell us anything about music choices that informed particular moments? That's kind of interesting. Were you hearing, I mean, Lexie's already told us that you guys went over some music that perhaps in a full production might have been underscoring or bridges between scenes or something. But was there music that was in your head when you were writing a scene? Something like that? Maxwell's Silver Hammer.
Right. That's like the one I was going to go to first. Maxwell Silver Hammer, obviously, that kind of played a prominent role in one of the scenes or part of one of the scenes. And so I listened to that song a few times just to try to get in the zone as I was writing that scene out. And I felt like that was important to include just because it was a thing that happened, you know, it like may or may not have contributed to the breakup, but I think it shows that, like, you know, I'm not trying to make Paul out to be a saint in this play. Like, he was like a perfectionist and stubborn and whatever. And so that was important. Another really, really important song as I was going through this whole play, not just in any one particular scene, although it is the focus of one particular scene. Maybe I'm Amazed, off of Paul's first solo album, McCARTNEY. I feel like sums up my play and just this whole time period so well, because he wrote it like after Linda sort of helped him through and got him like on his feet again. And so that song is like his way of thanking her, and it's one of my favorite songs he's ever written. And so I feel like that song was so important throughout the whole writing process, just because I feel like it shows you like what their relationship is like so clearly. And it's like I have said, and a lot of people would agree with me, it's one of the best songs he's ever written.
Nice. There are more questions here I want to get to, but I also want to, this is going to be, this is for you, Lexie, but it's not for you as a director, it's for you as a member of the class. And it's also kind of for anybody else that's hanging on with us that was in the class. Does being in a class like this make you want to write a play?
It's funny that you asked me that, because I am started writing a play this semester. And it's
kind of infectious.
It is, absolutely. And especially seeing how successful this class is and how communicative it is between everyone, and how everyone gets so involved and so passionate. It was just super inspiring, and very selfishly I was like, oh, okay, taking notes, okay, Elise did this, I will put that in my play. And it, yeah, absolutely, it's, the class was just so active and so lively, and it really did such a good job of bringing these plays to life, even in their like newest like baby forms. And then like watching the evolution of them, my answer is a solid yes.
Okay, yeah, I look forward to that script. I do. Okay, here's some. I'm gonna read a few of these questions, and you decide which ones you want to answer.
Maybe all of them.
Maybe all of them. Well, first of all, an observation, a really interesting observation. I observed that in this draft, George was dramatic/temperamental. I'd never really noticed that before in other drafts. You might want to address that issue. Someone asked the question, did the Beatles end up as friends before John died? Here's another one. Is there something symbolic about Paul fixing the fence? Because he never gets it.
I love all of those questions.
Yeah, okay. That's enough. You
yeah,
want any of those?
I'll give my fastest answer to all of them. About George, I love George. Fun fact, he's my favorite Beatle. Temperamental and dramatic, I think could fit, yes, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I also think he's fed up. I feel like if I were to write a play about George during this whole time, it would be very different from the play that we just watched, just because he had a lot of his own stuff going on. And I feel like I kind of touched on it a little bit when John and Paul were like, well, your songwriting's so much better now than it used to be. And he's like, come on, like, that's huge. I know, it hurts. And so I feel like he just felt like let down by the others. And so I think that's the fastest answer I can give to that. About the Beatles ending up as friends, kind of. John and Paul kind of sort of mended their relationship. I mean, they did. It, like, John was living in New York and Paul was living in England still, so there's only so much you can do. But Paul talks about how they'd phone each other regularly and talk about like their kids and baking bread and stuff like that. And so they ended up on in this really nice place. Ringo is pretty much on good terms with all the Beatles through most of time. Like, there are moments here and there where he's not with one or the other, but for the most part, he's like the steadiest Beatle in terms of friendships and relationships. John and George kind of had some, they had one kind of right before John died that I don't know if they'd ever got fully resolved, but whatever. That's all I can say about that. And then Paul and George, there was a lot of tension there for a lot of years, but like, I think it got resolved particularly after John died, because that kind of hit them all hard. And so they realized we can't keep going on like this. And so they kind of fixed all of that. And then the last question about Paul fixing the fence. Yeah. I think so. I love that moment because Paul is a musician. He's not a handyman, but he's out there trying his best. He's trying to like impress his wife. You know, she's like, because in the first scene, she suggests like a bunch of stuff that he can do, and fixing the fence was one of those things. And so in my head, Paul's like, yeah, I can fix a fence. Like, who can't fix a fence? And so he goes out there to try to do it, and then it just like doesn't work. And so he's like super frustrated and all this stuff. And then we revisit that later. And I have said in my earlier drafts, I said he has fixed the fence. And then I changed it to being somewhat fixed because I was like, it's not like Paul just has magical handyman skills that have suddenly appeared, you know? So I was like, he probably still doesn't know what he's doing. And the point is not that the fence looks really good. It's that the gap in the fence has been fixed. So
okay,
that's my answer.
An audience member offered the opinion, Paul is fixing the fence where the rain gets in.
Heck yeah, he is.
That's a lyrical moment. Did he write that song? Was that one of his?
Paul wrote that song, yeah.
Okay, well, there it is. Okay, everybody, we're almost done. But it's fun to stay with this for just a bit more. And yeah. I just want to know, and maybe the only way to do this, I'm sorry, is to unmute.
That's okay.
And now Elise has given us permission to unmute yourself.
That is okay.
So
if you want to.
Or comment. What should happen next for this play with Elise? For Elise, what audience? What's the next step? Do you feel like? You know, I mean, if it's a rewrite, what kind of a rewrite? If it's get in touch with an agent, you know, it's get in touch with an agent. But what do you think? Maybe
produce it.
Produce it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. It's like the voice of God. So you better do it.
Disembodied voices everywhere.
Here's someone that says, wouldn't an audio play be cool? That's interesting.
I like that. Thank you, Danny, for that idea. That would be cool because it's so, I mean, you listen to the Beatles on the radio, you know, so it's sort of reminiscent of that.
Podcast series, huh? That's really interesting.
I have gotten that suggestion before.
Huh? Yeah, it could be. I mean, you'd have to do
really cool.
Yeah, you'd have to do the whole career kind of in.
Oh, it would be
7 episodes.
It would be the deepest dive you've ever gone on.
Okay, Aaron has his hand up. Call on him. I call on you.
Great.
Oh, hey, hi, thanks. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got one of those newfangled doohickeys in my ear with the blue teeth. So I just want to make sure it's working. So yeah, I guess the one thing that I was thinking about throughout, and actually it's kind of reflected in a little bit of the conversation about the music as well, is just, you know, as I was listening, you know, to the dialogue and to the conversations, and I was really torn because there was so much that I thought was incredibly effective because of the way that the script, you know, distilled things in a way that I think that, you know, I think I could imagine a lot of other playwrights really going in that direction of like, all right, well, I'm gonna write my most accurate sort of impression of George, my impression of Ringo, you know, on the page, and really trying to make sure that comes across. And so like I'm curious about, like, I guess whether there's something to, whether that's something you already considered, or whether there's something to play with, you know, about, I guess, where that line is between sort of like, you know, what you distill and what you evoke, and like you know, yeah, like I don't know if it's like a spectrum between like information and, you know, and music, or it's probably not linear like that, but yeah, I don't know what would be lost and what would be gained, but that's the only thing that really came to mind. So.
Right.
That's
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I wanted it to be 100% historically accurate, I would have made a documentary, you know, and I wouldn't have dealt with all this. But I think, like, I would say that this play is like based on a true story, and I feel like that generally means like the story is important. So, you know, like as you were saying, some things get distilled and some things, you know, just don't get put in at all. Whatever kind of serves the story I'm trying to tell the best, and I am trying to tell like the most accurate story possible. But as I've already said, that would mean if I wanted it to be like 100% like the most accurate, then I'd make a documentary. And I feel like there's something about theater that engages people a little more than a documentary might. And I feel like there's something about it that makes this story, I guess, applicable to people who might not just be like, oh, there's a Beatles documentary. Like, I'm a fan, I'll watch it. I feel like this is something I would assume, I would hope that anyone could enjoy. And so because of that, you know, like some parts of the story get left out, and I tried to put as much on the page as I could.
Yeah, and one thing that I appreciated about that too is that I guess I really, like, before coming into this, I really would not have conceived of this situation being relatable. You know, and that there's so many things about their, you know, the personas that, you know, are just so much larger than life and really just have become like this crazy, like, impermeable pop culture armor. And to, you know, have that drop and to it just, yeah, it really just like reduced the distance I felt between me as an audience member and you know, and the Beatles as people. And so that was something that was really unexpected. So
thank you. I like that.
Ms. Emily Smiley, what do you have to say?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, this may not matter because ultimately we're all just people. But I wonder if there's any value getting this in front of a British audience.
Good point. I don't necessarily know the answer to that, but that is a very good point.
Yeah, same.
What's behind that? Why do you ask that?
Oh, just because this is, these are, again, and this may not matter because ultimately we're all just people, but there's a certain, I just wonder because all of the characters, right, in the play, except for Linda, are American, right? I mean, not American, British.
Yeah, switch it around. And then Yoko.
Yes.
But
and then Yoko,
other than that.
of course. There's, so I just wonder, you already know a lot about it, a lot about the characters, like more than I could ever aspire to know about the Beatles, or anyone for that matter. Yeah, I just wonder, that's all.
Nice.
That's
Okay.
a good question.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're winding down.
Maybe.
I'm will officially end this.
That
unless-
question.
Hurry. I'm not hearing anything yet.
I heard. Are you there?
Does anyone else want to speak aloud? Going once. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Just one.
Here we go. Go ahead.
quick thing.
Yes, please.
I loved your. I love that comment. And there is something so interesting about the fact that, yeah, you know, these folks are British, but at the same time, like, the degree to which, I don't know. Granted, I am no Beatles expert, but I kind of feel like I'm still sort of like breathing that pop culture atmosphere that they sort of like you know, like just like alchemically like changed. Like they like the distinction between like the Beatles and America, I feel like at a certain point, maybe historically, like I don't know how far apart they were. I guess, I mean, as people, obviously, but like in terms of just like the, you know, the personas and like the story. I don't know. There is something interesting about that because it is in that kind of like liminal space between like, is it an American story? Is it a British story? And then like, what do you do with that? Like, what choice do you make that that makes the story more successful? But yeah.
Let us turn. Thank you very much, Aaron. Let us turn to our official resident British person, Jamie.
Jamie.
Yeah. I actually think that this probably plays better here than it would in the UK, because I think, like the royals and figures from history, I think that the Americans are sort of infinitely more obsessed with them than the Brits are. And I think it's something about like not being bothered about or being less concerned with a thing that is yours as opposed to like a thing that belongs to somebody else. So I actually think that there's potentially kind of a bigger audience for the show here than maybe that. Not that it wouldn't play well, but I think that, you know, like people here always talk about what happened when the Beatles invaded. Do you know what I mean? Kind of when they arrived and just sort of the mania that caused. So yeah, I think that would probably be something that might be more interesting to an American audience than it is to a British one.
Nicely said. That's very
Thank you.
We got a comment that said, just want to say I really, really enjoyed seeing the version of this play versus when I last saw it being read. I really like the changes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's nice.
That is nice.
Thank you, everybody. This concludes the readings for this whole workshop. And some of you have come to more than one of these, and we're really grateful. And we've had a great time doing this. It's been a real treat for me to sort of just hover over and watch other people work, right? And see the work happen. So thank you, audience, and thank you, class, and see you down the road.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you, Elise.
Thanks to everyone. I had a blast.
Thanks, Elise.
Thank you.